agenda.
Welcome to the May 26th, 2026 regular meeting of the Troutdale City Council. We'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, which I will lead. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Sarah, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Andrews?
He contacted me and he's not available, so.
Okay. Counselor Allen? Here. Counselor One?
Yeah, he sent in a letter too.
Counselor White?
Here.
Counselor Davidson?
Here.
Counselor Leamy?
Here.
Mayor Ritma?
Here. Okay, very good. Mike, is there an agenda update?
I have no update, Mayor.
All right. Well, very good. We'll move into agenda item number 2, which is public comment. And public comment on non-agenda and consent agenda items is welcome at this time. Public comment on agenda items will be taken at the time the item is considered. Public comment should be directed to the presiding officer and limited to matters of community interest or related to matters which may or could come before council. Each speaker shall be limited to 5 minutes for each agenda item, unless a different amount of time is allowed by the presiding officer with consent of the council. The council and mayor should avoid immediate or protracted responses to citizen comments. And we'll start off to see if there's any public comment from those participating on Zoom. Anybody wish to address council at this time?
Mayor Ritma, Paul Wilcox, Troutdale.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Hey, thank you, Dave. Just a couple on the consent agenda, actually. On the minutes, first I wanted to say whoever's doing your minutes right now is doing an excellent job. I've got a really minor correction on page 3, about the middle of the page, the paragraph that starts off Paul Wilcox, the second line from the bottom at the very end. It says 665 cents. There's an extra 6 in there, so it should just say 65 cents. And that's all I have for that one. And on the, I don't know what you'd call this exactly, improvements transfer from Home Forward. On page 1, they're showing $109,336 value for the Second Street improvements and some sidewalk and curb work on 4th Street, I guess, also. So on that, I remember there was, well, it's actually on the next page. As part of the agreement, the city contributed $100,000 toward the Second Street improvements. So it looks like they paid about 90% of the Second Street improvements, which I don't know whether that was the intent to have that high a proportion, but it's just an observation on my part, and that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Paul. Anyone else on Zoom? All right, seeing none, how about here in the room? Oh.
I come in, my name is Saul Pompeyo and I'm the owner of Restaurante Pompeyo. I'm not sure this is the right place, but I need to report the lights outside for the parking in law for the downtown. They call north of historic Columbia River Highway, don't work for the last month or month and a half. I don't know when they stop to work, or they need to fix it. I think so they can fix it. I don't know if it's Portland General Electric or the city, but the lights doesn't work. That's it. Thank you very much.
Are you talking about down below?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, down below.
We'll look into it.
None of them are working, or?
No. Maybe I only the guy staying to light. That's it.
All right, anyone else? This is time for public comment on non-agenda or consent agenda items. All right, seeing no one else, we'll close public comment and move on to the consent agenda. And I'm going to invite Councilor White to handle that.
Sure. Consent agenda 3.1 minutes, May 12, 2026, City Council regular meeting with Paul Wilcox correction of 65 cents. And then 3.2, resolution recognizing the completion of the public improvements associated with the York Terrace apartments, accepting them into the city's fixed asset system. I move adoption of the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All right, Sarah, please call the roll.
Sure. Bear with me.
Yes.
Counselor White.
Yes.
Counselor Davidson.
Yes.
Counselor Leamy.
Yes.
Counselor Allen. Yes.
All right. Move on to agenda item number 4. And the first item is 4.1, an update from the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. And Lance Hemsworth is going to report, but the sheriff is here to back him up, and there's more backup. We'd like to see. All right.
All right, good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm Nicole Morrissey O'Donnell, Multnomah County Sheriff, and joining me tonight is Chief Deputy Lance Hemsworth, and he oversees our entire law enforcement division. First, I want to say that I am proud of the work of our MCSO members and what they do for our Troutdale community every single day. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to share more about our partnership with the city and the public safety services that we provide and the collaborative work that takes place in this community every single day to keep us safe. Next slide, please. Here we are. So at the Sheriff's Office, our vision is a safe and thriving community for everyone, and our mission is to support all community members through exemplary public safety service. I believe that public safety is one of the most important promises that a government can make to its community. For more than a decade, the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office has been honored to serve the city of Troutdale and fulfill that promise. Our partnership reflects a shared commitment to professional public safety services, community trust, and meeting the evolving needs of our Troutdale community. Next slide, please. So today our agenda will cover an overview of the public safety agreement and the full service law enforcement model that we provide through your partnership with the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, a review of the service data and the trends for calendar year 2025, and we will also highlight the specialized resources, collaborative partnerships, and community engagement efforts that support public safety in Troutdale every single day. Next slide, please. The Multnomah County Sheriff's Office and the City of Troutdale have built a strong public safety partnership since 2015 that has resulted in a stable, professional, and highly capable public safety model for every resident, business, and visitor. Through this agreement, we have continued to meet the community's high expectations for a safe community with a focus on patrol and emergency response, investigations, community resource deputy, and responsive leadership support. This includes 24/7 law enforcement patrols throughout the city and immediate access to over 150 specialized resources and/or personnel. The strength of our model and the ability for us to surge resources in critical incidents or emerging community needs is in our scale. We're a robust organization with strong oversight, detailed policies and procedures, comprehensive ongoing training, and modern technology that supports effective operations. All of this ensures the highest standards of law enforcement for our Troutdale residents. Again, I'm very proud of this agency and the members who serve Troutdale and all of our communities across Multnomah County. And I'll now turn it over to Chief Deputy Hemsworth to walk through the details of the annual report tonight. Next slide, please.
All right, thank you, Sheriff. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Ripma, and council members. As the Sheriff mentioned, I'm Chief Deputy Lance Hemsworth, and I'm responsible for leading the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office Law Enforcement Division. The Troutdale Public Safety Services contract, as you likely know, was initiated 11 years ago in March of 2015. The deputy sheriffs assigned to the city of Troutdale provide 24-hour days, 7 days per week, comprehensive public safety, policing services throughout the cities in between two districts. A minimum of one sergeant is on duty to supervise these efforts at all times. This is accomplished through 3 10-hour shifts. 2 uniformed deputies are assigned to each overlapping shift for 30 hours coverage each day. These services are conducted through uniform patrol, marine patrol, investigative efforts, civil process, and community resource programs, as well as system partner collaborations. Next slide, please. We use operational and calls for service data to guide how we deploy resources and structure staffing throughout the day. This ensures that we match personnel to actual community needs rather than just assumptions. We purposely schedule overlaps between shifts to provide additional coverage during traditionally busy transition periods. This reduces gaps in service and ensures that deputies are available even while one shift is ending and another is beginning. Data shows us that priority call volumes increase during the afternoon hours, so we deploy additional resources during that period to improve response times and service availability. We use detailed calls for service data to identify when and where public safety missions will have the greatest impact. This helps us to target problems, schedule focused patrols, and coordinate with partner agencies. Throughout the next several slides, we'll look at Troutdale's 2025 crime statistics and calls for service. This data reflects the strong, successful strides we've made together in tackling the safety and livability issues that matter most to the Troutdale community. By leveraging the special public safety resources you get through this contract, we are promoting an environment where local businesses can thrive and residents feel safe. Our ultimate focus is to protect and support the long-term vision of Troutdale, partnering closely with people and businesses that make the city great. Next slide, please. Illustrated here is a flowdown of calls for service and the resulting cases assigned to detectives. In 2025, MCSO handled 8,644 calls for service within the city of Troutdale. 4,387 of these calls were dispatched to a deputy, and 4,277 were self-initiated by a deputy. 516 of these calls were criminal offenses, which resulted in 440 arrests. These originate from the calls to 911 and self-initiated activity. 144 of these criminal offenses were person crimes, and 142 total cases were referred to detectives for investigation. Next slide, please. MCSO's dispatch calls for service and self-initiated activity have remained fairly steady. Overall, dispatch calls decreased by 4%, while self-initiated calls increased by 2% in 2025. Both emergency and non-emergency dispatch calls for service increased, while the average time spent per dispatch call decreased. Deputies spent 40 minutes on average handling each emergency call for service and 27 minutes for a non-emergency call for service. Next slide, please. This slide contains a lot of tiny text related to our calls for service data. We've included it this way to show the volume of calls and the very types of incidents that we respond to. Some things to highlight on this would be assaults and burglaries, both fell by more than 20%. Stolen vehicles were reduced by 33% between 2023 and 2024, but increased slightly by 6% in 2025. Next slide, please. Looking at the reported crime trends, we have seen lower rates. Both person offenses and property offenses decreased, while society offenses, which include offenses such as drug offenses and disorderly conduct, increased from 14 to 31. Next slide, please. To put those reported crime rates into an operational context for MCSO members, this slide details the investigations unit volume of cases from the city of Troutdale over the calendar year 2025, and the triage for prioritization that follows. The vast majority of these cases are felony person offenses. MCSO detectives investigate serious offenses such as bias crime, felony assault, domestic violence, child abuse, weapons offenses, sexual assault, and death investigations. These are complex cases and they take time to investigate. These crimes are prioritized over lower offenses such as theft, fraud, and burglary. As this slide shows, the detectives began 2025 with 88 open cases. 142 cases were added in 2025 and 116 were closed, resulting in 108 open cases at the end of 2025, or a net increase of 26. This is just the Troutdale data from the Detectives Division that remained. And an example of one of the cases that was referred is a shooting investigation, which occurred on May 30th, 2025. Deputies responded to a shooting with multiple victims at the Sandy River Delta within the city of Troutdale. A large group had gathered on the beach, and some of the people there were providing alcohol to people that were under the age of 21. During the gathering, a man took a cell phone from a youth, prompting that person's father to respond to that area and come to her aid. The father had a gun. A physical fight escalated into a violent encounter in which multiple individuals fired shots. 2 people were struck by gunfire, including the father, whose injuries were life-threatening. Ultimately, he survived. Patrol deputies secured the scene and immediately provided life-saving aid. The investigation was then supported by the MCSO detectives and members of the East County Major Crime Team, who conducted extensive follow-up work. This included processing the crime scene, conducting interviews, writing search warrants for DNA and other things, and performing additional investigative tasks. In total, hundreds of investigative hours were dedicated to this case. The completed case was forwarded to the District Attorney's Office for prosecution. Next slide, please. We know that supporting traffic safety and addressing traffic issues is a priority in the city of Troutdale. Deputies conduct proactive enforcement during times of availability, and they participate in enhanced public safety missions. Overall, traffic crashes decreased by 16% in 2025. We believe in using traffic stops as educational opportunities. We provide warnings and safety information to drivers who are young and inexperienced, or in a hurry to get to work or family commitments, and sometimes distracted or confused. We also issue citations and make arrests in the most egregious circumstances. Next slide, please. The MCSO Records Unit is a 24/7 operation. It's across the hall there. It's staffed by 21 full-time employees that are responsible for maintaining the accuracy, security, and accessibility of all Sheriff's Office records. Members of this unit interact directly with the community by phone, online, and in person, serving as a primary public-facing contact point for information and documentation needs. Core responsibilities include processing police reports, entering citations, managing warrants, and coordinating case records with the District Attorney's Office. The unit also handles the release of eligible records to the public, attorneys, and the media while ensuring compliance with state and federal disclosure laws. Staff conduct background checks, confirm warrants, and support court scheduling and documentation flow. The Records Unit manages a consistently high workload. Troutdale-specific reports account for 17% of all MCSO reports, spanning citations, restraining orders, warrants, and other related documentation, revealing the unit's critical role in county-wide records management. Next slide, please. Evidence and logistics specifically provide support for operational readiness and equipment needs, as well as evidence custody and documentation for our divisions. Although thousands of pieces of evidence are logged each year, they are closely tracked, be returned to the rightful owners, destroyed, or transferred to another jurisdiction. Maintaining these services is critical for any law enforcement agency. It keeps what we call the chain of custody intact. This is a huge responsibility, and the successful prosecution of people relies on our evidence unit properly and safely maintaining evidence in accordance with Oregon's retention laws. Next slide, please. I'd like to talk to you about MCSO and highlight the commitment to community-focused policing and proactive outreach, which are the foundation for building public trust in this community. Our partnership with the city is intentionally designed around friendly service where residents and business owners truly get to know their deputies. By prioritizing these personal connections and establishing strong face-to-face relationships, this collaboration helps to make sure Troutdale residents are engaged, listened to, and protected every day. Next slide, please. Our community resource deputies serve both ends of the county, from Sauvie Island in the west to the city of Troutdale in the east. Serving in this role, Deputy Nick Bohr acts as a direct connection between community members and the Sheriff's Office, helping residents build relationships and work collaboratively toward solutions that strengthen their neighborhoods. Unlike traditional patrol assignments, Deputy Bohr's role is not focused on responding to general calls for service. This allows him to dedicate his time to larger, long-term issues and community-building projects and work that often require sustained attention, coordination, and problem solving. Next slide, please. The stats listed above are Deputy Bohr's individual stats here in the city of Troutdale, and wanted to highlight one of the cases that was important to Nick, which is in the spring of 2025, Deputy Nick Bohr was conducting a traffic safety mission on South Troutdale Road when he stopped a motorcycle for a traffic violation. During the stop, he learned the motorcycle had just come from a location that was tied previous to incident where he had recovered a firearm and multiple stolen vehicles. After completing the traffic stop, Deputy Bohr developed the probable cause that the motorcycle was stolen. He impounded and conducted a detailed VIN inspection, which confirmed that the motorcycle was stolen. With that confirmation, Deputy Bohr contacted several neighbors living near the problem residence that the motorcycle had originated. After gathering photos, videos, and other evidence from the community, he drafted and executed a search warrant for the property. The search warrant resulted in the recovery of multiple stolen vehicles and another firearm. The suspect at the residence was arrested and later convicted on the associated charges. Next slide, please. MCSO values neighborhood relationships and the opportunities to engage with our community members during special events. We look forward to and really enjoy participating in these for Troutdale. Being able to connect with folks in positive ways helps build trust between law enforcement and the people that we serve. Next slide, please. Our school resource deputies play a vital role in creating a safe, supportive, and connected high school environment. They build trusted relationships with students and staff, provide immediate safety expertise on campus, and help prevent issues before they escalate. Through daily presence, mentorship, and collaborative problem solving, they strengthen the sense of security that allows students to focus on learning and growth. Their work ensures the school remains not just a place of education, but a place where everyone feels protected, heard, and supported. Here I want to call out the nearly 300 mentoring contacts our deputies had with students, as well as the 11 classes that they taught to students throughout 2025 school year. Next slide, please. The Homeless Outreach and Programs Engagement Team, otherwise known as HOPE, has been an important connection to the homeless population in our contract cities and unincorporated Multnomah County. The HOPE team connects homeless individuals and families with resources needed for housing, drug addiction, or necessities such as the HOPE team makes connections with homeless population to create an environment of trust and respect that aids in sharing information about those who may be in need. In Troutdale alone, this included 224 contacts with individuals in need, referred 22 people to services, and cleaned up 43 unsanctioned camping areas. Next slide, please. We rely on calls for service data to guide our public safety strategies, helping us to determine when and where to deploy public safety missions and what specific crime trends or call types we need to address. This ensures our efforts are targeted, efficient, and responsive to real community needs. In 2025, we conducted 34 high-visibility enforcement missions focused on stolen vehicles, human trafficking, reckless driving, DUI, or driving impaired, and organized retail theft. These missions resulted in 151 arrests, 114 citations, the recovery of stolen property, along with the seizure of crime-connected firearms, demonstrating the effectiveness of data-informed deployment. Our approach also recognizes that public safety is a shared responsibility. Strong partnerships between law enforcement and community stakeholders are essential. By working collaboratively, we create safer neighborhoods, improve trust, and ensure that our strategies reflect the needs and priorities of the people that we serve. Thank you for the opportunity to report on this great work, and I'll hand it back over to the sheriff. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Chief Deputy Hemsworth. So in closing, we know that Troutdale residents have high standards when it comes to law enforcement and public safety. They understand what a capable law enforcement agency must be able to handle, which includes complex investigations, critical incidents, and emergency response that doesn't compromise day-to-day city patrol services. As we look ahead, we remain focused on continuing to strengthen our operations and enhance public safety through some of the key priorities that we have listed here: continued advancement of drone technology and full implementation of body-worn cameras to enhance transparency, operational effectiveness, situational awareness, and public safety response capabilities. Just as the last slide, Chief Deputy talked about our enhanced public safety initiatives and missions. We want to continue to expand those, and those are focused on stolen vehicles, gun violence reduction, dangerous driving and DUI enforcement, drug trafficking, and any other high-impact operation that can address a community concern. As the Sheriff of Multnomah County, I remain committed to maintaining our collaborative services to ensure the safety of our community is always put first, that response times remain low, and we have specialized expertise that are required for complex investigations. We have robust accountability mechanisms and community outreach that is always available, and I'm hopeful that the city and the council agree. We view our relationship with Troutdale as extremely important and as a long-term investment in the city's future. By continuing to leverage resources, personnel, technology, and partnerships that are available through the Sheriff's Office, Troutdale can maintain a level of public safety service that meets the operational demands and the evolving needs and ever-changing needs of each community that we serve. And again, I'm just incredibly proud of our teammates who serve Troutdale and the communities throughout Multnomah County each and every day. They show up and they are dedicated and committed to doing their best work, serving others, and often putting themselves in difficult and dangerous situations. All of this to protect our communities in Multnomah County. Next slide, please. And with that, we wanted to thank you all very much for your time this evening, and we're happy to take any questions if there is time that allows.
We'll open it up. Thank you, Sheriff and Chief Deputy Worth. Any questions, comments from the council? Yes.
I'm just curious if there's anything you need from us that could help your officers in our community.
Communication. So I think that as we've been navigating contract negotiations and really trying to ensure that we are always providing the best service for our Troutdale community, making sure that we have open lines of communication. We're regularly looking at data on where some of the trends may be, but it is also extremely helpful for our community to come together and have a shared responsibility in community safety and where we might be able to do a better job in particular areas of our community.
Well, I want to acknowledge that City Manager Mike Weston and I met with the Sheriff and Chief Deputy Hemsworth a couple times in the last couple of weeks, and had very good and fruitful discussions, and we're second to none. Troutdale is second to none in our appreciation of what the deputies work in Troutdale and for the Multnomah County do for us. And I mean, it's no secret that we're exploring restarting our police, but it has nothing to do with dissatisfaction with the service we've gotten. It's frankly about money, but that is no fault or consequence of anything that the Sheriff's Department has done. You've been great over all these years. It is customary in Troutdale to open each agenda item for public comment, and I want to note that one of our former counselors sent in a lengthy email with public comment, which will be made part of the record this meeting relates either to your report or to general public comments, but it will be part of the minutes in our meeting. And with that, I'll invite anyone on Zoom who wishes to address council on the sheriff's report. I don't see anyone. How about here in the council chambers? Does anyone have any comments or questions on this matter? If not, thank you so much for coming. Thanks for, I don't see anything. Oh, Saul, you're usually not too shy. Come on up.
Good night, my name is Saul Pompeyo. I have a question. How often you patrol the back street of the downtown Troutdale? They steal me 3 cars. 4 times they broken my gas. 2 times they broken my door and come inside. I remember when we worked with Troutdale Police Department, I always saw the patrols coming. And I want to know now how often you patrol the streets in the back.
Sure. That specific street, could you tell me the street one more time, sir?
Yes, it's the north of historic Columbia River Highway.
It's the street behind, along the tracks,
Okay.
behind the stores.
And then these thefts and damage and burglary, what kind of a span of where are we talking? Is this in the last week or the last
In the
years?
last 3 years, 4 years, they steal me 3 cars. They broken 2 times the door.
Got it. I can definitely look into that, but I will tell you that, like I mentioned earlier, we have minimum of 2 deputies on time, on duty at a time on each 3 shifts, and then 4 during the overlap in the morning, afternoon, and the evening. We definitely try to have our patrols throughout the entire city and to focus in areas where we see enhanced crime.
One special hour is between 8 to 9. I have 3 or 4 servers, young girls, and they go out. It's nice to, with some, eventually a patrol in the back.
Between 8 and 9 a.m. or p.m.?
8 p.m., you know, when it's night, it's dark.
You definitely take a note of that, and we can go back and look at specific call volume, but we definitely expect them to be out in the community and definitely looking to reduce crime for everyone.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I have one last comment if there's no more public.
Please, you're most welcome.
So I just wanted to share that, as the mayor mentioned, we have met a couple times, and we're all recognizing the financial realities. We've been through it with the county budget. We've seen it in the schools. We've seen it in private companies. And my responsibility as the sheriff is to look beyond any one contract and focus on the safety of all of our communities. So I believe that we were able to come together and put forth a proposal, given the constraints that everyone is facing, that still meets a 24/7 highly professional public safety service that has all of the resources to navigate critical incidents, complex investigations, and I am looking forward to further conversations as you have an opportunity to review that.
Thank you. There will be further conversations, I assure you. All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everyone.
We'll move on to agenda item 4.2, which is an update from Mount Hood Community College.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here tonight. I'm Lisa Scari, president of Mount Hood Community College, and I'm joined tonight by my board chair.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Andrew Spear. I'm the current board chair, and I represent Zone 3 at the college, and I'm also an alumni.
So I'm really pleased to be here tonight to share an update with you on the college, where we are, some of the accomplishments we've had, and most importantly, how our partnership is creating opportunities for students and our community. Slide. As a reminder, Mount Hood serves a very large area. We serve 3 different counties. We have 3 campuses and over 1,200 employees. Last year, we awarded nearly 1,500 degrees and certificates. And the board has a focus on affordability, and so our tuition is $124 per credit. Now, that still in this community is about access, and that is expensive, and our foundation is absolutely amazing. This year, they're on track to they will have awarded over $1 million in scholarships to students to make that ability to go to college affordable. And the wonderful thing about it is those are people from this community that are stepping up to help students. As a reminder, we serve kind of a full range of educational opportunities, everything from Head Start to high school dual credit, our degrees and certificate programs. You may recall a couple of years ago, I shared great news that we were approved to award our first applied baccalaureate degree in cybersecurity. Well, this spring, we're going to graduate our first class. So we're excited to be there. The program is going strong with enrollments, and we're really pleased to be able to provide that to our community. Now, I do want to pause and just say thank you, because this is the first time I've had a chance to see all of you, and since we passed the bond, and I just need to say again, we couldn't have done it without the community. We appreciate your support in what we were doing, both as a council, but also individually. This was a community effort, but it was a wonderful accomplishment, and Andrew will share a little bit about the details, but that vote for us was a powerful statement of trust, and we take that responsibility very seriously. And part of that, Mount Hood is the only educational institution in Oregon to receive the Triple Crown Award from the Government Financial Officers Association for stewardship of taxpayer dollars and transparency. So that's something we've worked hard, we're proud of, and we also think it really benefited us with the bond. And then lastly, I just like to note is with the impact of the college and our graduates, we have an economic impact of roughly $423 million annually. And that's money that's staying in this community, that's contributing to this region and making us strong. Next is just a snapshot. This is our student population last year, over 18,000 students. 65% of our students are first generation, meaning they're first in their family to go to college. 2/3 of our students come from right here in our district, and we have about 40% students of color. And who we serve, that's why these partnerships are so important, because we're serving our community and doing it together. I think we're making a much stronger impact on not only them, but also their futures. So I'd like to share this graph around our partnership with Reynolds School District. And this year, you'll see with how many students we have participating in dual credit. So these are students that are actually in the high school earning college credit. When you take that $124 per credit, residents of this community saved over $130,000 in tuition this year because of this partnership. Now, on the right side there, the other students enrolled, these are students that graduated from Reynolds School District that are enrolled currently with us. And so again, Mount Hood continues to serve this community and will continue to into the future.
I get to present the bond portion, and I also want to say thank you for the City Council and the Mayor's support of the bond campaign. As part of the campaign, I was the PAC chair, and so that was a whole labor of love that I don't know if I want to repeat again, but it was really neat to see community come out at the different cities that we serve in our district and support our efforts. And we passed by just over 200 votes, but even that small margin, I think, was really meaningful on the work that the college has done to both get out in community and show our impact to you all. So thank you for your support. Next slide, please. This here is just a rendering of the pool. I think one of the biggest items that we were pushing out with the campaign was the community aspect of the college, and the pool is a centerpiece of our community involvement. And so I think most of you are aware that the pool will have a cover over it. And so this is a rendering of the cover open and what it'll turn out to be. We're in process of this build, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But the right hand, the bullets there are just getting at where the focus is. So we're, everything from modernizing the classrooms to just the nuts and bolts of getting roof and HVAC replaced, but then also making these key improvements to specialty areas like the pool are top of mind and prioritized within the bond. And one other thing to mention on that slide that I forgot is the accountability piece. And so we've been making it clear to folks that we have, as part of the bond, an oversight committee formed, and they've met once and they're about to meet again for their second meeting. They'll meet quarterly. And so that's made up of community members across the district. And so just again, speaking to that piece that Lisa touched on of kind of the fiduciary responsibility and the financial impact that we make on the community, we want to make sure that accountability is front of all of that. This is getting at, I think this is a really interesting slide and just lays out the practical nature of a bond. It's not overly interesting in some regard, but this is the timeline that we have to do the projects and make those capital improvements that voters passed. And so we'll be making improvements over a 5-year period, as stated there in the last or second to last bullet. And then also we're in the process of staging and hiring contractors and design firms. And I'll get to that a little bit later. But this is just the practical nature of passing the bond and what we've committed to voters. This is a really neat slide. So in the bond, we asked for $136 million. And because of the college's credit rating and getting back to that financial stability and that prioritization of the board for that fiduciary responsibility, we were able to secure another $10.9 million as part of the bond sale. And so the total number that we have to work with is the 147 at the bottom bullet. And so I just think that's really impactful. And we also have another $8 million match from the state. So we've got upwards of over $150 million to work with also. So we've done a lot with what we've been given, and we've also made some progress to get more. So because of the financial stability of the college. So I think that's just a testament to the board's prioritization of finances and then Dr. Scari's execution of that over time. This is getting at the kind of practical nature of where we're at with the first run of projects. Like I showed in that first slide with the pool rendering, we're looking to complete that sometime this year, hopefully by the fall time. Right now it's in process of digging the pilings and foundation work that was a little bit unexpected, but so that's taken a little bit of time, but we expect that to be operational here in the near future. Parking lots, again, a lot of what the bond was focused on was to not build new square footage. So we're taking existing square footage and retrofitting it or repurposing it and a modernization effort on it. And so a lot of roof, HVAC, parking improvements. So in some regards, it's not interesting, but I think for me, it's a demonstration of what the college has been able to do with the assets it's been given over 50 years ago. And really just working to maintain those as a good steward. Over the next 90 days, these are just the priorities, and I did want to note that the board was just updated last week at our board meeting on the hiring of a general contractor, so that'll be happening soon, and that will allow us through the general contractor to solicit local contractors and prioritize them within the bidding process. So as you go forward and know folks in the community, I think it's really important that we support the community through contracts and bidding processes that prioritize local businesses. So that's a big effort that we're working on. And I think that contractor will be selected in the next 2 months or so. And then we also have the design firms selected, and they're working on in conjunction with the timing for the general contractor to be hired. So projects will start shortly. As I've thought about like what a bond means and, as property owners, right, it's just an increase in taxes, which isn't always fun, but I think one point that stands out is that slide that we were able to get more than we were because of our credit rating. So at the same cost to voters, so we're doing more than what we said we would at a lower cost. And then the other piece being, there's been a lot of discussion since I came onto the board in 2019 about career technical training and what those pathways mean for students. And I think now if we've progressed to today, in the last 2 years, I think there's been more of an emphasis on, with the legislature especially, on thinking about workforce development and its impact on economic development and opportunity. And so I really see this investment at the college to be able to further our programs, diversify our offerings, and create spaces that meet students' needs. The best example of that, I think, is in the space of nursing. We're working on an allied health lab that will allow different disciplines to work together in a lab space to mimic the real world. So that's just one tangible example, but I think there's going to be others in our other trades that have programs for. And that's all impacting a return on investment for us as citizens of the district. So please keep that in mind as you talk to your friends and neighbors. And, people don't love seeing new line items on their tax bill, but I think this is really making a unique impact. Next slide, please. If you'd like, here's the website where bond updates will be made, and you can follow and track progress. We'll have pictures and other renderings as we go along through the process, and other updates around hiring, different firms and selection dates. So please go there for updates.
So next year is a big year for us. It's a milestone. We are turning 60. Time to celebrate. This next slide is just kind of a fun little retrospect. Barney is our mascot, Barney the St. Bernard, and so here's kind of some of the images of Barney over the years. Just kind of fun to see where you've been and kind of where you're going. So as we look to next year, we're going to do just that. We're going to take some time to look at our history, where we've been, what we've accomplished, and celebrate that. But also as important is talking about where are we going and what are we thinking of and what do we need to plan for into the future. So you're going to see that message kind of woven in through all of our activities next year around both that celebration but also that future thinking. We will have a series of events and activities throughout the year, starting with our convocation at the beginning of the year, which will be mid-September. And we'll go all the way through commencement, which is in mid-June. We're looking for ways to connect, to bring the community in, to celebrate the community that helped create us and make us what we are today. And here's where you can help, because I always have an ask, right? Some of you maybe have photos of when you've been on the campus at events, or if you have family members that went to the college. We're trying to collect kind of a montage of photos over the years. And so if you happen to have anything, or even just of campus, photos of campus, please send them to us. And also if you have any story. One thing we found out is there used to be tricycle jumps into the pond, and we found some old footage of it on a news channel. So I'm sure there's lots more stories like that. We want to pull some of those things up just because they're kind of fun. And if you have anything to share, here is an email. You can send us photos, ideas, any stories you might have. We can be sure to include. But we look forward to hopefully seeing you at some of the events next year, and we'll keep you posted on all things Mount Hood, including the bond. And any questions?
Questions from the council? Well, I'll just say thank you very much. I'm delighted the bond passed. It was a long time coming. I'm one of those that always voted yes on your bonds, and was disappointed for many, many, many years. I think Mount Hood Community College is a great asset to Troutdale and to East Multnomah County, and really everybody in the state. But it provides wonderful service. It's a great campus. Thank goodness it was well built when it was first built. I think there was one bond that passed, but that was 4 years ago. And it's still a beautiful place and provides a lot of valuable services, both to the students and to the community. No question about it. So congratulations on passing the bond. And I will invite public comment in case anybody has any questions or comments. I'll start with anyone on Zoom wish to address the president of the college or the board of the Mount Hood Community College Board on any matter.
Mayor Ridma, Paul Wilcox, Troutdale.
Yes, Paul, please go ahead.
Yes, I heard public events mentioned a couple of times. I saw recently that the Highland Games had moved to Hillsborough. Would you like to address that?
Yes, we were sad to hear that too. They've been going through some financial restructuring. And I think you might have also seen that rather than doing a weekend event, they've, for next year, are doing a much more scaled down event. So we've worked with them before and we've continued in the past and hope we can figure out a way to bring them back. It was a wonderful event to have in this community.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Anyone else on Zoom? How about here in the room? Anyone care to address us? Saul,
No.
were you saying yes? You want to come
I
up?
want to say,
Please come on up. Find a seat.
Okay. My name is Saul Pompeyo, and I'm the owner of Restaurante Pompeyo. And I say is the Mount Hood Community College is, for me, like a business, was excellent. You know, many of my friends own a restaurant, and they try to find good employees. And I always find in the Mount Hood Community College a good kids with good ethic works for working my place. Second thing is very good for all the community. You know, the biggest event for Troutdale and for me is the swimming thing. You know, they full all the hotels, all the restaurants. It's a great thing for the business, you guys events. Another nice thing of the community college, right now my daughter go to the community college. It's excellent. That means if you want to put in contact with me, I can try to help in many ways. You guys for the past, tell everybody, because like he say, it's a very good access for the community, the Mount Hood Community College. Thank you very much. And thank you for your job.
Thank you, Saul.
I did think of one.
Yes,
Cosmetology hasn't been there for the last couple of years. Is that something you're going to be bringing back? Because I know that was a sadness in the community because they did support that program.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a program cut in 2019, end of 2019, and you know, that was a program evaluation that we looked at as a board and directed Lisa to do, and so we don't currently have plans for that to come back. I think part of the criteria that we used, Lisa and her staff used at that time, was to evaluate, you know, other opportunities within the community for that specific training, and that one especially was highlighted as other locations not far from the college that had other opportunities for training, and so that's a key centering point in terms of why it was presented as a cut. Yeah, and the other part of it being that it didn't have completion rates, so people would do like 1 year and then leave the program, have enough certification to go into the workforce. And so the culmination of those things made it such that it didn't make it viable as a program at the college.
I will add that we've been working with Vernon School District, and so have been trying to help them and support their program, including with materials.
Yeah, their classroom's right across from mine. So, yeah. It's a great program. I was just wondering why it was no longer at the college.
All right. Well, thank you
Thank you.
so much. We'll see you. And we'll move on to agenda item 4.3, Multnomah County Stark Street Bridge Replacement Update.
Hello. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Megan Neal. I'm with Multnomah County's Transportation Division. I am an engineering services manager there. And with me today is another engineer from the county.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Ryan Rucker. I am also an engineer with Multnomah County.
We really appreciate this opportunity to share with you what we're working on with the replacement of the Stark Street Bridge project. We're looking forward to engaging the Troutdale community as well as this council along the way as we move forward in the process. So today we're going to provide a little bit of an overview of what the project's all about, a general timeline, and some key engagement opportunities that we have planned for the current phase, and then answer any questions you may have. Next slide, please. So this group here is probably very familiar with this bridge. It's over 100 years old, constructed in 1914. As you may imagine, a bridge of this age in our current transportation system, it no longer meets our current design standards to safely accommodate all the users that the bridge serves today. In addition to that, it does not meet the current load carrying requirements. And Ryan will go a little bit more in depth about the condition and the load reading of the bridge. So this project is really about creating a new seismically resilient crossing at this location to really serve our East County community in the gorge area, something that will be structurally sound, low maintenance costs over the long term, and then safe for all users. Now, all that sounds really bad for a bridge, so I just wanted to say it's not lost on us that this bridge has a lot of historic character. It is even a contributing resource to the historic Columbia River Highway Historic District. So I just wanted to share that we are looking at options that are going to preserve the existing bridge. And so we'll be bringing back results of that, our key findings of those studies later on this year. Next slide, please. I know this may be hard to read, but I'll try to walk through our proposed schedule. So we are in the environmental review phase right now. We don't have funding for design or construction, but we are working on opportunities to fund those future phases. So we kicked off this project last fall, just started gathering information about the bridge, getting data on its condition and what sort of constraints are in the surrounding area that the project should be considering. This spring now we are doing some outreach to collect information from the community about how the community uses the bridge, and we're going to incorporate what we hear into our work as we develop a range of alternatives for a resilient crossing, as well as a draft evaluation criteria that we would then use to screen those alternatives. We hope to come back in the summer to the community and share a short list of those alternatives, get some feedback and input on those alternatives, as well as our draft evaluation criteria. And then in the fall, come back and share our preferred alternative. So what is the option that meets the project's purpose and need and has the least impacts to the surrounding area and is something the community can support. Once we have collect feedback and input on that draft preferred alternative, we would then formalize it as our selection and close out the environmental review process. And like I said, all this time we'll be looking at ways to fund future phases of this project. Next slide. This is probably not new information for this group as well, but I just want to share a little bit of the context surrounding the bridge and how it's used as we know of it today. A lot of the surrounding area is agricultural in nature, so this bridge really serves as a critical connection for farm-to-market vehicles. It also serves as a critical connection for East County cities for day-to-day life, like commuting to work, school, emergency response, things of that nature. And then also it's a gateway to recreation, so it's a gateway to the gorge, but also the Dabney State Park immediately adjacent to the bridge. So with that, I'll hand over to Ryan to talk a little bit about the existing bridge.
Thank you. Next slide. So this slide really speaks to a lot of the key factors of the existing structure on why a replacement is needed. The first item you see there, sufficiency rating. So every 2 years, our bridge inventory is inspected. And this sufficiency rating comes from those inspections, and those are based off of structural integrity of the bridge, its serviceability, and essentiality to public use. When you get a low rating like this, anything lower than a value of 50, it's recommended that a bridge be replaced. With that, the Stark Street Bridge is weight and turn restricted. It's very confined. It has a substandard geometry. Right now, the cross-section is 18 feet in width, which is far smaller than what you would see on a standard lane width of about 11 feet. It's very aging and deteriorated. The wooden structure that is the sidewalk that is used by pedestrians and bicyclists was added in after the bridge was constructed. It is deteriorating. It's only 4 feet, which is substantially lower than what we would typically provide on a structure like this, and doesn't service those pedestrians or bicyclists south of the bridge after they leave. It's also very vulnerable to scour and earthquakes. This bridge, as Megan mentioned, was built in 1914. The in-water piers, as you can see in the image there, they sit in the river. So when you have a very fast flow rate of water going around these structures, it can pull a lot of that sediment and soil, which can leave these structures essentially hanging in place. It cannot provide that stability for the structure. And the structure was built on wooden piles. In the case of an earthquake, those wooden piles would collapse and fail, and the structure could fall into the river. Next slide. So a little bit more about the substandard geometry. These two pictures really speak volumes. The one on the right was an incident that happened last fall in October. A large semi-tractor trailer truck struck the north wing wall, ripping off a portion of the wall and leaving the bridge unserviceable for several hours. Since 2017, there's been 36 recorded accidents. I wish we had cameras out there because I feel like we could put a substantially higher number there of potential, what would you call it, near misses. I know recently we've been doing a project to repair this damage that happened here on the picture on the right, and we did some traffic count analysis. And as you can see on the image on the left, it's very constrained when you're on the north side of the bridge. And because people are trying to turn left and right, and you have traffic that's heading east-west on the historic highway, you have a lot of near misses because people don't have that line of sight to be able to see traffic that's incoming. And recently, we did apply a weight limit, a 19-ton weight limit for semi-trucks, just due to the continued age and deterioration of the bridge. Next slide. So yeah, kind of speak on some of the recent repair projects that I'm sure many of you in the community have seen recently. Back in 2024, the bridge was closed for about 6 months. This was due to a collapse on the north wing wall. So prior to the project in 2024 and 2025, this wing wall was constructed out of a dry stacked stone. So essentially large cobbles that were packed together with dirt, mortar, and other material. Upon evaluation, it was determined that this construction was very inadequate. So the county deemed it needing repair, which you can see in a few of those photos on the bottom left and in the center. And recently, As we saw on the previous slide, that truck did strike that north wall. We've been conducting some emergency repairs there to thicken that wall, to provide more structural integrity for the slab and wall. So if there is any unfortunate strikes to the bridge in the future, it will hopefully prevent it from hitting the bridge trusses and girders, which could lead to a substantial failure of the bridge. And with that, I will pass it back to Megan.
Thanks, Ryan. So hopefully you get an understanding of the condition of the bridge, some of the challenges we've been facing, and kind of the increased intensity of some of the accidents we're witnessing out there. So you have a better understanding of really the foundational purpose of this project. So to bring us back to our current phase, we will have a robust public involvement and a community engagement plan. As I mentioned, the schedule, we have 3 input opportunities right now scheduled, and that input will really inform how the bridge will be designed. And we'll continue this engagement in future phases. We did learn a lot about what the community cares about and what's important to them through the recent emergency repair project. Ryan mentions we've gotten we've developed really good relationships with the school districts, first responders, Corbett residents, and we also have a better understanding of how anything we construct in this area needs to comply with the Gorge National Scenic Area. So that will have a heavy influence on the aesthetics of the bridge. Next slide, please. Right, as I mentioned, we are collecting community input on how the bridge is used today. So we have a live survey link that'll be open through June 30th. And I just want to say I really appreciate Troutdale staff who are incorporating some of links to our survey through existing social media. So we really appreciate help getting the word out. Next slide, I just wanted to close with just a little bit of what we're working on trying to fund future phases of this project. There are a few avenues available to us right now on the federal side, and that includes a congressional appropriation. We've already submitted that. We've submitted a USDOT bill grant. We actually should be hearing back about that in June. That would fund a portion of the design phase. We are working on submitting a DOT Bridge Investment Program grant that's due at the end of June. Very aspirational, would fund the whole project. While we have, we're very excited that this project is a great grant applicant. If we're not successful, it's a great opportunity to get feedback on your application for future years. And then we have access to federal formula funds for local agency bridges. I think there's some plus up in those funds currently being proposed in the transportation reauthorization bill. So perhaps that additional amount of funds could trickle down to this project. Next slide. So that's all we have today. Again, we really appreciate your time this evening to share about this project. We'd love to come back at future milestones and share what we've been up to. So with that, we'll take any questions you may have.
Questions?
Where can people go to do that survey?
Our website is starkstreetbridge.org. And from there, there's a link to the survey. Yeah.
Fun?
I'm just curious about, the real problem seems to be the approach, because, we have the railroad bridge that's carrying the weight of a train, and they were built about the same era. So is anything going to be done to maybe carve into that hillside and make it more of a button hook approach?
I think right now we're just looking at options that widen the bridge to meet current design standards, nothing that would go into that rock wall face on the north side. Is that answer your question?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. I was encouraged to hear that you might utilize the old bridge because, we care a lot about the scenic highway out here. And if it was the Troutdale Bridge, you'd probably have a fight on your hands.
Yeah, we love bridges, although sometimes we have to tear them down. We love old bridges. So we are excited to see what options may be on the table for that.
And then, I don't know if you guys are aware, but the Troutdale Bridge got hit on the southwest side of the bridge. And it really damaged the stonework. In fact, one of the arches collapsed, and one of the big top stone caps got knocked off and thrown onto the pedestrian walkway. And I know the pieces were saved. Someone from the county came and picked up the big, but I haven't seen any repairs yet. Do you know an update on that?
Is that the crossing here closer to downtown Troutdale?
Yeah, it'd be right in Glen Auto Park side, or by Sugar Pine, on the west side of the bridge, west-south.
Yeah, that bridge is owned by ODOT actually.
Oh,
I
right.
don't think we're familiar with that damage, but as you can see, these more narrow bridges that were built in that era just really can't handle some of the semi-tractor trailers that come through here.
This was an impaired driver.
We have those too. We have those too. But yeah, it's a challenge, and we are very well aware of that bridge. However, thinking about the potential earthquake that soon, at some point will hit our region, both those bridges would go down. So, this project could provide at least one crossing for East County residents over the Sandy River, should that event happen in our.
The county did apprehend that individual. Good work. All right, that's all I have.
You started off by saying there was some way of making the necessary repairs while preserving the bridge, but I saw nothing. How would that work?
We plan to bring back that information later this summer when we have it fully fleshed out, but I can share that it would be for bike ped use only, and something, because it's not wide enough for vehicular traffic, and something we're exploring is to have bike ped access on the new bridge, but also have the old bridge open to bike peds as well, maybe more as like a trail experience, or just more leisure experience, not the primary crossing for cyclists and pedestrians who are maybe headed out to the gorge. So we're looking at ways to have bike and ped facilities on both crossings, just maybe one's a little bit more slower pace than the other.
So the idea would be to build another bridge next to it.
Yeah. Yep, that's definitely an option on the table, as well as retrofitting the existing bridge to be the primary bike ped access, as well as demolishing and rebuilding in the same alignment. So those are kind of the flavors of alternatives that we're exploring. We are looking at crossings away from the current crossing. Of course, there's many challenges with not linking directly into Stark Street. So we just need to want to do our due diligence to explore a wide range of options, so it's very clear that any one that we do move forward with really makes a lot of sense.
All right, partly I asked a lot of questions when this first came up, and Troutdale, a majority, it wasn't everybody on the council agreed with me, but we sent some questions to the county, and the county then immediately announced the project to go ahead with it. The questions were questioning the wisdom of going ahead with it. I was president of the Troutdale Historical Society. I'm still on the board and have been president before of the Historical Society, so I'm more interested in the history of the bridge. I also I can't resist, you're right here in front of me, to say more heavier, bigger trucks on Stark Street is not a really great goal for Troutdale, in my opinion. I just don't see it. as being worthy of all the effort of replacing a historic bridge. The idea that it was built in 1914 to someone who loves history doesn't constitute a reason for it needing to be replaced. Now, the earthquake danger and that sort of thing, sure, I recognize that. And any bridge could probably be improved. But my other question, for consideration, just from your picture of that semi trucks like that do not need to be on the scenic highway. They just don't need to be there. It is a difficult turn, I recognize, and right now they're banned. And that seems like a good idea, and you reduce the weight limit. And that seemed like a good idea. So anyway, I just, it is a historic, it is part of the scenic area. It is a bridge that fits the aesthetic of the scenic area, and I hate to see it replaced with just a modern concrete bridge. If there was some way to save it. The idea of saving it for bike ped appeals to me. That sounds at least like it would save the bridge. But just more long, heavy trucks on the scenic highway doesn't seem like a worthy goal to me. That's just my comment, my personal comment. But I certainly thank you for the update, and sorry if I sound harsh, but it's not my favorite thing for the county to be spending money on, really. But I recognize that something needs to be done. And I think by banning trucks and lowering the weight limit, you did do some important things, and it's working pretty well. Anyway, I am going to invite public comment in case there is any. Starting with anyone on Zoom wish to address these are Multnomah County officials dealing with transportation and the replacement of the Stark Street Bridge. Seeing no one, how about here in the room? Anyone care to address the county folks? Any?
Good evening. I want to thank you guys for all the work that you've done on the bridge. There's been a lot lately, and just a couple of thoughts, and I know this probably is unrealistic. But one of the problems that we have is the speed is 55 through there, which is quite fast. And if you're coming down from Corbett, that bridge comes up on you real quick. The majority of the damage that's been done to the bridge, and I don't know why, is it's just vehicles that can't make the corner. Some of it's been truck damage, I agree with you there, but a lot of it has been just SUVs and cars come down, they go to make the corner and they hit the rock wall like every time. There was I don't know if you know this or not, but there was a pool at the Springdale Tavern, how long it would take before it got ruined, and the guy that had the shortest amount of time won all the money. But I was just going to say, it's a very difficult intersection, and I don't know if it's a possibility to do something like a flashing yellow light or something up above there, because I don't think the damage is going to stop, because they're coming down so fast, and they're trying to make that corner, and they don't make the corner, and they lose control. And I've seen it happen quite a bit.
So I know that concern has been addressed. When this last accident happened, we did have discussions with ODOT because it is in the historical scenic area. We had discussed putting stop signs or putting lights there, and they didn't want to take away from that effect of driving down the historical highway. It would put a pause in traffic. They wanted to keep it free flowing from where it starts to where it ends. But I know when we started that project, that was a discussion that we had with ODOT and our consultant of looking at options to try to prevent future accidents
And
like
I was
that.
just
But that was
thinking like a
large truck,
flashing
but
yellow
yeah.
light might tell people, you know, if they were going 55 through there, that'd be great. But they're usually not. They're usually doing substantially more than that, especially in the summertime.
They're doing, yes, when I was out there about a month ago doing traffic analysis on turns and speeds and things like that, there was people I would bet to guess were going far greater than the speed limit, which is extremely scary because when you're making that left or right turn, those people are coming around those corners so quick that if you're not estimating that, that's,
Right.
a really close collision. And it's also, to your point, Mayor, I know you had brought up, we don't, I don't think the intent is to allow larger trucks into the, onto the highway and into Stark Street. I did notice, and I have noticed when I've been out there for this recent repair project, it's not necessarily the large trucks, it's also school buses, larger commercial trucks, or not commercial trucks, personal owned trucks. I saw on several occasions when we were doing traffic counts, even someone in a large F-350 would have to sit at that intersection and wait for a sedan to come through because they were in fear of clipping mirrors or, causing damage to other people's vehicles. But these are all considerations that we've taken into account because we want to make it safer, not just to allow an additional type of vehicle to be using the bridge, but we want it to be safe for every user of the bridge.
And you don't have many sandwich situations where they get on the bridge and they're forced into the guardrail or into the other vehicle like that. But just one comment, you said trucks on the highway. When you've got things like TADS and Corbett Country Market and all of these things, how are you going to get products there if you don't want delivery trucks on the highway? You can't really go up Corbett Hill Road. And so I'm just wondering if they're not on the highway, how does that work? Trucks have been on that highway for a long time.
Well, of course, I'm talking about encouraging more of them, rather than, yes, local deliveries, I recognize.
Yeah, it's just they're always going to be there. Anyhow, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, well, thank you very much for your update. I really am curious, and I'm curious what you come up with for saving the bridge if you can.
Thank you very
I
much.
hope you can. Thanks very much.
Appreciate it. Thanks very much. It's not really in Troutdale, but we do care about it, and we're the gateway to the gorge. We have Visionary Park near the Troutdale Bridge as well. So
Yeah, we look forward to
It's important to us, so thanks.
I think, aren't they the two oldest through truss steel bridges in the state?
I think, I'm not sure about the ODOT bridge, but definitely our bridge, I think, is like maybe the only bridge of that type with a pony truss. I still need to get up to speed with my descriptions, but it's going to be embedded in an upcoming report by ODOT about these historic steel truss bridges in the state.
Thanks. All right, thanks a lot. Moving on to agenda item number 5.1 is public hearing, introduction, an ordinance adopting development code amendments for design standards along the Halsey corridor for properties zoned MU2.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'll pull up my presentation because I did not send it to you ahead of time. All right. Good evening. My name is Dakota Meyer. I am the Associate Planner here with the City of Troutdale. I am joined this evening virtually by our consultant team with MIG, with Matt and Keegan, so they may jump in to help answer any further questions. But this evening I will be presenting the staff report for the proposed text amendment to Chapter 4 of the Development Code for zoning overlay districts. under case file number LU-0007-2026. All right, we're going to start off with a little zoning map here. The area is shaded. It's kind of a difficult color to see on the screen, but it's kind of shaded in an off green. This is the area for the proposed overlay, or for the proposed Halsey Gateway Overlay District. The zones affected by the application are the downtown mixed use zone, or MU1, and then the general mixed use, which is MU2. There's one primary request served by this application, and it is to update Chapter 4 of the Troutdale Development Code to add the Halsey Gateway Overlay, or the HGO, and incorporate design standards for the Halsey Street corridor. The section for the Troutdale Development Code sections and proposed amendments, all the proposed changes will occur within Chapter 4 of the zoning district overlays. Specifically adding a new section, which will be 4.700 Halsey Gateway Overlay District. Within that section, we have 4 subsections, 4.710 through 4.740. Those are to add residential and mixed use requirements with limitations for residential uses, add site design and building massing and articulation requirements, add building design requirements, and then add height bonus standards for developments that exceed 35 feet. Albeit this bonus is capped at 4 stories or 50 feet, whichever is less, in the MU1 and MU2 zones, and requires Planning Commission approval through a Type 3 application process. This is a bit small, but this is a little bit of background and a timeline for this project. As you can see, it starts off in 2017. This is kind of a continuation or a follow-up to the Main Streets on Halsey project, which was a Metro grant awarded to the Metro Planning and Development grant awarded to the 3 cities of Fairview, Wood Village, and Troutdale. That project went on for several years and ultimately was passed down to me. If you remember, I came here I believe it was about a year or 2 years ago now, where after several discussions with Planning Commission work sessions, staff determined that the proposed amendment did not meet the needs of the city of Troutdale. And we ultimately recommended denial of that code amendment package. It was then denied by City Council in April of 2024. Closing out that grant. The reason why this is coming back is during the process working with Planning Commission noticed there were several aspects of the plan, the proposed amendment that did sound good, but the whole package as a whole did not work. So they directed staff to go back and look a little bit deeper into this. So that's what we did. In February of 2025, we were awarded the Metro 2040 Planning and Development Grant to conduct an audit of the current development code and to identify barriers to housing and economic development along the Halsey corridor. In April, the city partnered with our consultant team led by MIG, or MIG. In June, MIG led the first work session with Planning Commission to introduce this project. And then in September, based on feedback we heard from the Planning Commission in that first work session, staff tabled the first Friday event, the first Friday in September, to bring to the citizens the proposed concepts and to receive feedback based on what and then formulate that into the plan on what we heard from citizens of the city. Because the one thing we did hear a lot during the first project in 2017 is that this project didn't have, Troutdale wasn't listened to during the project. Felt like we were left off to the side while the other 2 cities got what they wanted. So the staff's goal was really to focus on Troutdale first. This is our project. The other 2 cities are not involved in this. This is our full grant project that we're working on. And then in October, we took what we heard from the citizens at the first Friday event and went back to Planning Commission for another work session. We presented what we heard, received feedback, and they received feedback on the recommended text amendments that staff and MIG had put together. In February of 2026, we had the final planning work session with MIG, where we presented, again, edits to the proposed text that we had heard from Planning Commission as well as the public. In March, staff presented a summary of edits to the proposed text amendment to Planning Commission based on our previous discussions once more. So we had one more work session in March. And then in April, Planning Commission held a public hearing and received public testimony to review and consider case file LU-0007-2026. The commission suggested minor edits to the proposed amendment and directed staff to reach out to DLCD to allow parking as an option for increased height. This was not added in a whole lot of detail in the staff report. It will be on the June 9th staff report, the section regarding staff reaching out to DLCD to see if this is possible. And then Planning Commission voted to continue the hearing to May 13th. And then in May 13th, Planning Commission continued the hearing from April 8th and suggested a couple more minor edits to the final section of the proposed text amendment under section 4.740 to add parking as a community benefit. When we received information back from DLCD, they said that we would be able to add a parking requirement to the list of community benefits as long as it remained part of the list and not a requirement. So that's what we discussed with Planning Commission and ultimately added that into the list on the final section there. The procedure for this hearing, we'll use to consider this request as a type 4 land use application with Planning Commission recommendation and approval. City Council is the decision-making body and will hold 2 hearings. Tonight is the first hearing, the introduction of the amendment package on May 26th. And then again for council consideration of the adoption of the amendment package on June 9th, 2026. For public engagement and notice, we, like I mentioned before, tried to go out of our way to provide as much and receive as much community feedback as we could. So we have a project up on the city's webpage. We had an article in the Champion asking for folks to, if they have any comments, questions, concerns, reach out to us, give us their feedback on what we're proposing, help me to discuss this with you. A tabling event at First Friday, as I mentioned, several Planning Commission work sessions, several discussions with our CAC, and then a mailer provided to owners within the proposed overlay area, a direct mailer sent out to all the citizens asking and neighbors if they have any sort of comments, concerns, questions to either reach out to me or come to our Planning Commission work sessions or hearing. Newspaper notice, online notice, and then notice to DLCD and Metro. We did receive a couple of public comments. These can be found within the packet, the staff report packet. The first one is an agency comment from Metro. We received that on March 6th. They had a question whether the standards for no more than 50% of the lot frontage being used as street-facing residential conflicts with the UGMFP Title I. Staff responded that the 50% limitation is for mixed-use development only. All other approved housing within those zones is not affected by this standard. And then we received 4 public comments. One by Mr. Paul Wilcox on April 3rd. Those were some text corrections prior to the April 8th public hearing. Another one from a Troutdale resident, David Green, on April 6th in support. And then we heard 2 public testimony during the April 8th public hearing from Shelby Stephenson, Troutdale resident, in opposition, and Aaron Jensen's Troutdale resident in opposition of the proposed amendment. The proposed findings, which are also located within the packet under 6.1120, I'm not going to go through all of these as they are in the packet. They're quite lengthy. So I hope you read them. They are pretty long, but staff does find that all criteria is met. All the criteria listed within 6.1120 has been met with this application. So now we are asked the council for action. As I mentioned before, the council is to consider Planning Commission's recommendation, which is approval of the proposed text amendment at 2 public hearings. As mentioned, May 26th for the introduction, which is this evening, and then June 9th for the adoption. Actions for the June 9th meeting are to either confirm, amend, or revise Planning Commission's recommendation, enact or defeat all or part of the ordinance, or remand some or all of the proposal back to Planning Commission. That is the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any sort of questions anybody may have. Thank you.
Before I ask the council, who is the applicant for this?
We are. The city is the applicant.
Why? I never directed you, I don't recall ever directing staff to take up an overlay district at the Halsey Street termination or whatever it's called.
We were directed by, oh my God. Yep, we were, after we...
actually don't recall it.
We were directed by Planning Commission for amendments to the code, or development code. So after we went through the process the first time, there were a couple things that they liked from the first packet. Again, not the whole packet. In order to close out that grant that had been going on for well over 5 years, we needed to have a decision at City Council. But during the process, while reviewing the packet and the proposed text amendment from the previous consultant, Cascadia, Planning Commission directed staff to go back and look at what was here, but clean it up, make it more Troutdale focused, and then bring it back.
Was there direction given to the Planning Commission that it had to be done quickly, or we were running out of time, or something along those lines? Because they don't usually just take something on without... this is a whole new animal, if you will. Halsey Street runs through 3 cities. And Troutdale's always been fairly, let's see what happens, but in both Wood Village and Fairview, it's kind of a main street for their cities, but not Troutdale. And so anyway, I will say astonishment that this is coming to us.
It is a primary.
The first hearing, when I don't recall us ever even asking that it be considered.
The grant, the Metro grant came to council and was approved.
2017, it looked like.
That was the first one. The
was
second
in
one was in
2017 and 24, I believe, right after, like about
6-7 months.
6 to 7 months after the First Amendment package failed.
And knowing how Metro grants work, they ask us to approve in theory or in concept the idea of doing improvements along Halsey Street, but I'm not ready to tell you chapter and verse how that came about. But if you're going back to 2017 as the authorization to go ahead with this.
2024 is when the authorization. The first one was in 2017. That was denied in 2024. Staff came back for authorization in 2020, later on in 2024.
Well, I don't remember. I just don't. I don't remember. I tell you what's really got me is this 50-foot height limit. I would never have approved that. So that I'm just alert to that. There's a lot of other things in here I don't understand, but that one I would not have missed that. And I'm sorry, we're gonna need more time to deal with this. At least Mayor Ritma is gonna need more time to deal with this because I do not understand how this got this far without me. I was astonished when I read the packet. Other questions from council?
You know, of course, I'm a parking person, so I didn't see, and it's a lot of information to read and to swallow and to really digest. I didn't see much parking. And I'm really concerned as of right now, there is hardly any parking right now in Troutdale, especially with Wayfinder and the Home Forward and, you know, some more restaurants opening up. There is no parking down here. And people are either parking in where the mall is, or they're not coming to Troutdale, because I've talked to people who aren't coming to Troutdale anymore for First Fridays or for activities, because the parking here stinks. I didn't see that addressed in here at all. Unless I totally missed it. I see the word parking, but I don't understand the explanations, or I didn't see them. So could you clarify that?
Totally. Yep, totally. So this actually, it's a great question. And that's what actually we discussed quite a bit at Planning Commission through this process, because that's a great concern for the city as a whole. It's kind of a multi-layered approach. And I say that because with the CFEC guidelines, the Climate Friendly Equitable Community Guidelines, this section falls directly within the CFEC zone. Basically meaning we cannot require parking for any development within this area, because it's right in CFEC. So through multiple discussions and work sessions with Planning Commission, that was constantly a topic that came up. And that's why at the hearing on April 8th, they brought up the idea of, hey, can we add it as part of this list where it's a community benefit, because it would benefit the community, in a way to where, so that's something a developer can choose. Because on the last page in section 4.740, it has a list of community benefits. There are 7 listed. A developer, if they choose to go for an additional height above 35 feet, 4 stories max, or 50 feet, whichever is less, then they have to choose at least 4 from that list. So originally we had 6. Planning Commission asked if we could do that. Staff realized we have to reach out to DLCD to see if that's an option. So we did. DLCD got back to us. They said it was a great question. No one's asked that. They were actually very impressed with Troutdale for kind of finding a loophole in the system. They said we could require quotations, because it's part of the list. We could provide parking as a community benefit as long as it remains part of the list. And then during the meeting on May 13th, it was discussed more with Planning Commission about, well, providing parking is a pretty large financial burden for a developer, if you consider how much. So now that's why we changed it one more time to where, in I think it's number 7 there, it states that if a developer provides 60% of the minimum required parking listed under section 9.10.
I think it's 65%.
65, thank you. I'm trying to remember all these sections off my head. Then that counts as 2 of the list items, so they only have to provide 2 more. Again, this is only for height bonus. And if they provide 75%, then they don't have to provide any of the other things from the list, because they're providing 75% of the minimum required parking. What would be required if it wasn't in CFEC.
So Metro has always said, or TriMet came and said that they provide all this transportation, but then they're being cut, and guess who's being cut? Troutdale. So we're building all this wonderful stuff here, and there's where people can go. If they don't have a car to park, they don't have transportation, or they have to walk a mile to transportation, or they have to wait a good hour for transportation. So all these promises came back nil and void, right? So although I appreciate the parking thing, I am really concerned about building something that's 50, and then compromising, saying that we could do 50, but you can have more parking, or you can decide to make more parking. I'm just concerned.
And that's a valid concern. And I want to preface this by saying this project was initially, the goal of this was to look at the corridor, because it is a corridor that runs through all 3 cities. And how can we make this more of a vibrant and extend the feel of downtown across 257 West? because downtown is very vibrant. And we want to try to have that feeling cross 257. There was a project that was it was completed and approved for the streetscapes for Halsey Corridor, and that was in conjunction with the 3 cities and the county. Now, that's more of a capital improvement project, so that may take some time. But this would be a perfect thing to then pair with that in the sense of we want to have it be a walkable area, pedestrian friendly, because they're about to do these, or they will be doing these amazing streetscapes. So the goal was, and that was initially with the mindset is like, well, we can't do parking, we can't require it, so how do we do that? I will say that most developers do provide parking. And we had this discussion with Planning Commission. But in the case that they don't, well, now they have the option if they want. Right now, the maximum height requirement there is 35 feet. So when you think about the extra 15 feet, that's 1 story because these are for mixed use developments. You can't go an extra height, do this extra height for a fully residential, for mixed use, so commercial on the ground floor. Right now, 35 feet with a 10-foot commercial ground floor gives you 2 stories of residential. That goes back to what we heard during the very first time this project came around. Developers don't want to build that because they make their money on the residential part. So they want to go higher. It's like, well, we're not getting anything as the city out of increasing height. The citizens aren't getting anything from that. So that's why we decided to go back and, hey, how do we make these requirements for the height? We're not just going to give them additional height. Here's something that if you choose to do so, go through a type 3 application, has to be approved by the Planning Commission for an extra story, because it's 4 stories or 50 feet, whichever is less. And the reason why it's written that way is because then that depends on the style of roof. Because that's why you have to give them, there's that extra couple of feet. So that's how we ended up, and then the parking was added, and I think it was a great addition, because that is a really good point that, these community benefits are great, but what would be great for this community specifically is parking. We really want to see 20-minute neighborhood walkability, but only if you're on that corridor, you can't really get there too easily. So parking was a great opportunity. And the fact that the LCD said, yeah, that's great. It was I felt like a big win for Planning Commission as a whole. So that's how we got to adding that. And the reason why it's still a little lower is because we can't require we're not allowed to, because then that's in direct violation of CFAC by requiring parking.
Okay, so the other question I have is mixed use. As much as I love the idea of being able to maybe live on top of my favorite store down below or a coffee shop, right? Gresham's not thriving in the mixed use. Some of the cities I visited nearby aren't, they're not full, they're struggling. How are we thinking that we're gonna just be automatically more successful, or,
No, and that's why these requirements are for mixed-use developments. If we look at it, for example, MU1 zone, I think all development types except for single-family residences are permitted outright. So it doesn't stop a developer from building just regular homes, or townhomes, or row homes, or quadplexes. We just wanted specific requirements. Because we've been hearing from developers, well, we need the 3rd story. We need the 3rd story for mixed use in order to, hence make the math add up. So it's like, okay, well, if we're going to do that, we need to get something in return as well. So we're not blocking out other developments because those are still permitted. This is just, if you're going to do mixed use and you want to try to go higher, then you have to go through these and provide something to the city. Yep.
I also add one thing here. If a developer chooses to do mixed use and they decide to just utilize the 35-foot limit, they don't have to go to Planning Commission at that point in time. So this just provides another option. Either they can just move forward with their development at 35 feet, or if they choose to go higher, here's an option, here's a different process that you can go through, and you're going to have to, utilize 4 out of the 7 community benefits.
And those community benefits are directly pulled from what we heard from citizens at the first Friday event.
And Planning Commission.
And Planning Commission.
If I can add, just from a legal perspective, I think your planning staff, whether or not, I have no idea about whether or not the mayor directed this, council did, but it's very, your staff is very creative at working with the CFAC rules to add parking to the close to downtown and downtown area. So as Dakota said, I think DLCD thought it was a clever way to find a loophole. It was.
Yes, I agree. It's creative. It is a trade-off that allows us to maybe get some more parking, but what were the CFAC you refer, how do you spell that?
It's climate, so CFEC, Climate Friendly and Equitable Communities.
And that's in the packet here? I didn't see it.
No, that was approved.
That was approved, oh my goodness.
2003,
No.
2023, right?
I want to say, no,
Here.
later. I want to say
Those last things, wasn't
we
it?
approved CFAC last year.
I do remember something like that.
And we can't.
Cities challenged it in court, and the Court of Appeals upheld the rules.
Okay.
So.
And the Supreme Court wouldn't hear the case.
Right.
Correct.
House Bill 2002, 2003.
Well, I appreciate you putting this in because I know we've done many conversations about parking and
Having many other committees as well. It's just not planning commission and city council. We hear it a lot.
Right. So it was a 2020.
Are we required to adopt some sort of, what's it called, the end of?
The Halsey Gateway Overlay.
Are we required to adopt it?
No, this is not a state, like, for example, CFAC came down from the state. This is not something that came down from the state. This is something that, based on that first round of the main, quote unquote, main streets on Halsey, that we were directed by Planning Commission to look a little bit deeper in this and try to make it more Troutdale centric, rather than just going with what was approved by the other cities. And so that's what we really tried to do. So we went out and got the grant which enabled us to then get our consultant MIG and have them really help through the process of writing this proposed amendment, this package.
And by virtual us seeking the grant and getting it, are we required to do it?
We are, with the grant, we are required to do right. Well, the last step is right here, is bring it to city council for either adoption or denial. And once, whatever that decision may be, whatever you all decide, that decision will then wrap up the grant.
I see, but you're not saying the city council is required to approve it?
No, they're required to just make a decision on the proposed text amendment.
All right.
It has to go through the full text amendment requirements in order to be closed out.
Just one other thing, when this comes back, or it's information I would like, I don't know who can provide it, but I would like to look at what we did in, what'd you say, 2024 maybe? Or what?
In 2024.
That triggered this. I mean, I remember us adopting something about trees and
The linear
medians
street.
and parking and sidewalks and bike lanes along Halsey.
That's a separate project.
But you're saying there was one for this overlay for the, what do you call it?
Yeah, sorry. If I can go even a little bit deeper, I'm not sure how, because when I started here with the city, this was handed to me, so I did a lot of research on this in order to bring it for denial initially in 2024. And when this was initially started, we did the research. Our consultants also had all the documentation and did the research, where staff found that it just didn't meet the needs of Troutdale. So when we recommended denial, we had to recommend something. That's why it had gone on for 5 years, is because it never was brought to city council for either adoption or denial. So that's why we brought it. At that time, they didn't have the incentive program. There was hey, you have to pick these things, but at that package, they just wanted automatically 50 to 55 feet. We didn't hear we wanted that. from council, planning commission, or citizens. So that's why we created this in a way based on feedback. That first time it came around in 2020, in 2024 is when we ended up doing the denial. It was, I don't think it was written particularly well, but we had to just wrap it up because we kept getting, we needed to wrap up the project. But during that process, we heard from both, I think, CPC, PC, Planning Commission, and here at Council, that this just doesn't meet the needs of what the city would like to see. But there could be a couple things in there. For example, the designs. So that was going on since it lasted so much longer. It's supposed to be a year-long grant, went on for 5+. That also kind of bled into the same time the streetscape project, the Main Streets on Halsey. That's why they get kind of confused. They were two separate projects. It just went on for so long that they were starting another one, and it just bled together in name, based on name. But they were two separate projects completely. So what was adopted here were the streetscapes. That was a project done with the county for the streetscape, for bike lanes, widening, pedestrian walk, widening the sidewalks, adding potentially on-street parking, things like that for the streetscape project.
Okay, thank you. There's in section 7, this community benefit element from parking is mentioned. It refers to a section 9.010.
Okay, then that's
and I couldn't find it.
That's because it refers you to a different chapter, which is chapter 9, where our parking standards do live. So in our development code, you'll notice that there's a lot of times where you'll be reading and it'll send you to a different section because that's where those standards live, rather than reinventing the wheel. Hey, just go look. In our online code, they're usually hyperlinked, so you can just click in, it'll bring you right to that section.
But it wasn't in the packet.
No, because that's an existing, we're not amending that.
I understand. Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Those are your standard parking rules without CFAC. The outside CFAC.
Outside CFAC zones.
So even though CFAC says that rule doesn't apply, this says that if you meet it by either or 75%, you can get some height.
Mm-hmm. Was anything other than height offered in exchange for more parking? I mean, where did the idea of height of the buildings? I realize it's creative, and I agree with Ed, and your job. I sounded angrier than I am. I mean, it's just, I just wondered if there was some other way to get it, these benefits of parking that we all want without ruining the city, in my opinion, by increasing the height.
So that's, if you look at the rest of the package, has nothing to do with the actual development for height at all. The rest of the package is for building massing. So for every 100 feet, you have to have a bump in, so there's articulation between building facades. So if someone were to build a very large structure, there's...
those are some of the counts, count as two benefits.
No, those are just design standards that are separate from height. So that's if someone were to, say this were approved and say that height section is completely pulled out of this, when it gets approved and that was removed before it was approval, and the rest of the overlay were to be approved, then there would still be specific design standards for any mixed-use development going in this area. So design standards that would get rid of the height, but that would, but they would still have specific standards for how many, ground floor windows. Ground floor has to be a minimum of 10 to 12 feet. So design standards like that. The issue with that is we have, for example, we have design standards for downtown. They are just for downtown. So the idea was to try to bring that across the 257. The issue with that is based on the research we found, like I mentioned, from developers, like, well, we're just not going to build mixed use because we want the extra height. We want the added apartments. We're in a housing crisis, aren't we? That's what we always hear. So that's where, when the community benefits came in, and then that's where Planning Commission found the way to add parking in an area that we can't provide. We can't require a developer now to provide any sort of parking.
If I can follow up, this morning I had a very serendipitous conversation with a developer that I'm working with on the developer side. And we were talking about a particular site that it may be possible to get a podium built by somebody else. And then he would put the apartments on top of somebody else paying for the podium. And the question came up, could he make it financially feasible to build simply 2 stories of apartments above the podium? And he said, because of the construction costs and the mobilization costs, all the things associated with construction, it doesn't make sense to have fewer than 4 apartment levels when you're constructing. Just the economics of scale make it so that 4 are necessary. So in building the code this way, to add the height to allow that kind of higher height, that is what developers need in order to make it so that it's possible to build. And that's been the case since before the interest rates went up in 2022. It's probably been the case since about 2017 or 18, maybe even a little earlier.
Well, of course, my answer to that is, okay, that makes it impossible for you to build and make money, and that's great, we all want that, but we've got to live with it forever, or at least for our lifetimes, and that's the issue. And that's the important thing, yeah.
Put design standards in there as well, like corner entrances, similar to what we have downtown, where, building step backs over a certain height, then the building has to step back. So that way it doesn't feel like you're in a narrow tunnel, it steps back over a certain height, so as it continues to go up, it gets wider and wider. And then they have additional step backs. You can't build over a certain height if you're within 20 feet of a residential development. So that's another requirement here. So if you were to do that, well, you can't build, it has to be 35 feet, which is the current max. And then you have to step it back if you're within 20 feet. You can't build it up. And a lot of those sections down there, these zones, don't have setback requirements. So we have additional setback requirements, or setback requirements, as well as no front parking. Parking has to be in the rear in order to keep the building closer to where it's walkable and for pedestrian friendly, where you have the building more along the street. And so people can walk and go in and out of buildings. And then we also have weather protection, larger windows, things like that, because we want to have it more inviting for pedestrian friendly. And if you are going to park, which we know most developers do provide parking anyway, because they want people to visit their establishments or rent their apartments, then have the parking in the rear. So that way it's not between the building and the street. To make that a little bit more of a community friendly, similar to what we have downtown. Because there will more than likely be street parking, especially with the streetscape designs. We don't want to block off that whole area with additional now parking lot. We want to have that in the rear. So those are some of the design standards that we put into this code section to just try to make it as pedestrian friendly, walkable, but also enticing to a developer to want to develop.
Did the LCD say that this parking in exchange for height would be allowed?
Mm-hmm. They did.
They did.
Did we ask about anything else that we could give other than height for more parking? Maybe you can't think of anything, and it's not.
Yeah, I think because that's like the big.
I mean, that's a tough one, but. Anyway, I just wondered if you asked.
Yeah.
They didn't volunteer anything else. No. All these setbacks and things are nice, but okay.
And I do just want to emphasize again, if a developer does choose to go over that 35-foot in height, the application would be a type 3 application and would be reviewed through Planning Commission. So it would go through a hearings process for
rather than a type 2 staff.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, okay. All right, thank you. Anything else from council?
I noticed real quick that there was letters for it, but I didn't see any, like, the other two that are opposed to it.
Those were public testimony during the planning commission hearing. Yeah, so they didn't submit
I'll
any.
go back and listen to it, okay.
Sarah had her hand up, Dave.
Oh, very good. Who does? Okay, Matt, or John, I mean.
John Lehman.
John Leamy. Yes.
I just had a question for perspective. So how tall are the York Terrace apartments as they go down Halsey?
Those, I believe, are 45 feet. York Terrace, sorry. Are you talking about Fox Ridge?
Oh, Fox Ridge, yes, Fox Ridge.
Fox Ridge. So I believe those are 45 feet. Those came in for a variance and received a variance through Planning Commission due to the topography. So a variance can be done at an applicant can request a variance if they choose to do so. The issue is they need to meet the requirement for a variance. And that type of requirement is based on site layout, topography. A public need is best met by the variance. So in that case of Fox Ridge, they received a variance due to the steep slope to the south of Halsey, and so that's how they were able to receive a variance for increased height. Now, the townhomes that are to the north of Halsey, west of the open field there, if you actually look at from West Columbia River Highway, those are actually 4 stories. I don't believe they requested I don't think they had a variance, but it's how the roof line was built. They're not built to 4 stories, but they're built to almost a 45-foot height, which is over the minimum requirement. I think maybe they weren't done with the variance because they had ADUs. So they didn't get a variance. So there is a way for developers to do that. However, I don't find they have to have a really good reason in order to meet the requirements for staff to write an approval, a request for approval to Planning Commission. In this case, given that developers would be able to have an additional, say, 15 feet or an extra story, again, whichever is less, it's going to be really hard to see a need for a variance because an applicant could request a variance on top of this. The likelihood of it being approved is pretty slim. They are pretty difficult to meet.
So we're already building 4 stories in that neighborhood, though.
In certain areas, yeah. And again, those were good reasons based on site design and topography, and just couldn't build with the hill the way that they wanted.
Where are the ones north of Halsey that you mentioned? We're talking about, where are they?
I remember the name of it.
They're just down the way. Yeah.
Property.
It's these right here. So if you're on West Columbia River Highway, and if you look right here, these are actually taller than 35 feet. They're a townhome. It's a townhome development. I can't remember what
They're back They're back quite a ways off Halsey.
Yeah, they're north of Halsey, south of West Columbia River Highway.
Because I really hadn't noticed, but I'll have to look at the topography a little bit. Okay.
More handy property.
Right. More questions from council? Yes, Glenn.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of being at the Planning Commission meeting, which was very helpful for me. So I can understand why it's probably pretty confusing.
It's very dense information.
The main topic of that meeting had to do with parking, and then I see in the staff report it didn't make the list. Was that just
That was just an error on my part, so it will be added to the June 9th. I'll go into a historical section there, a little background paragraph describing what occurred at that meeting in the next staff report. That was just an error on my part.
So explain, the one thing I don't understand is how that property is qualified for the CFAC designation. Is it because of how it's zoned? MU1 and MU2 or?
Sure, yeah.
I-
Genius.
So those properties that Dakota had shown on that, in that overlay district are all within one quarter or 1/2 mile? 1/2 mile of a bus stop or the bus line. And if you're within that 1/2 mile radius of the frequent service bus line, then CPAC you can't require parking for those properties that are within that area. And that legislation and those code amendments were passed about a year ago.
So, but it wouldn't apply to our town center, is that correct?
It does apply to.
It does apply to our town center.
So these incentives could be added to a property in the town center?
That is something that we could go and look into about if this works, which I think it would, then that could be something. I think the thing is, it just, it need to be part of a list of incentives. That's what was responded, or what was.
What would stop that from happening, us not passing this? I'm still confused. These properties on your map are automatically involved in this.
That's just for this overlay. We're not overlaying the downtown because they already have development standards, design standards, but there wasn't anything to the west of 257. So that's why we initially, when we first started this, to go on a little more history, we had it going from 257th west all the way to the end of Troutdale city limits. Through discussions, we realized we didn't want to incorporate the McMenamins properties into that. McMenamins does a really great thing at what they do. We don't want, I think we could always expand this further down. There was also already there's already residential down there. Most of them are zoned high density residential, low density residential 2, low density residential 1. So these design standards wouldn't really affect them because these are for mixed use specifically. So those are the mixed use zoned areas that are west. And so that's why we wanted to change and kind of bridge that gap right now that is 257th from downtown. Kind of bridge, have that design and feeling move west across to almost expand the downtown in a sense. We wouldn't be expanding because downtown's its own thing, but have that same kind of feeling expand 257, across 257. So that's why it's kind of a smaller area, is after looking through what we were proposing and what we were looking at, it didn't make sense to also have the residential developments also be constrained to certain development styles, because these styles they're not building 100 feet without these articulations, because we already have townhouse requirements, design requirements, and row home and things of that nature. So it didn't make sense to incorporate them. And then same with McMenamins, let them continue to do their thing. We could always choose to expand it in the future if that's something that council wants to do. But at this time, we thought it was the best for this code package to keep it to just the mixed use zones, which currently are not being utilized for mixed use in the city.
Just for the record, I pulled up Fox Ridge Apartments on Google Earth, and the mayor's taking a quick look at what it looks like from the street.
I think I've driven by it many more.
Right, but that just refresh your recollection of what you're looking at.
Just that front row that is the 45.
Just that first row.
Well, it's also away from downtown, away from the historic area of Troutdale. I mean, it wouldn't be anywhere nearly as impactful on views of Troutdale and the hillside and the historic part of the city as 50 feet at the corner of Halsey and 257th, or to be really historic Columbia River Highway and 257. In my opinion, that's a terrible place to put a 50-foot building. Okay.
I do want to say, this isn't a requiring a 50-footer, just automatically allowing. I do want to make sure that's clear. I think that's what we've had to reiterate a lot, because we hear that 50 feet and it gets stuck in the mind a little bit. That's not saying that they're automatically allowed. That's if they choose to go through it. I just want to make sure that that's.
I understand that, but I mean, the rule is 35 feet, and there's apparently 45 feet things that get through on variances. And while those are difficult, and this might be easier to get, it isn't a comfort for my concern. Those are not, had that been proposed in downtown, there would have been an appeal to the city council, at least, in my opinion, I suggest. Okay, it's a public hearing, so.
Some questions?
Oh, I thought you were done. Sorry, Glenn, go ahead.
It's all right. And I was on the Halsey Corridor Executive Committee for like 3.5 years, and then they kind of abruptly stopped meeting, and that's when CFAC hit, and we haven't met since, so I think it got disbanded. So, you know, it's come quite a different direction, is what I'm trying to say, because Troutdale, we were kind of thinking like, hey, we've already got our downtown, we're not going to tear it down to recreate it. And I understand now how these properties got in, but I don't think East Historic Columbia Highway was ever part of the Halsey corridor. It was properties strictly on Halsey. Mm-hmm. So they're getting included because of their closeness to a bus stop. They're within a half a mile.
For this purpose, for that map you're looking at, is because of their zoning, because they're zoned mixed use. So that's why they're incorporated in this package. The bus stop, that has to do with CFAC completely.
Originally, it went all the way to the other side of the Troutdale Bridge was the area that they were trying to.
That was the first where it was really just focused on those properties abutting Halsey. That was what that first one was from 2017. That's why we changed that to incorporate just more or less the mixed use zones rather than the residential uses and commercial uses along the stretch of Halsey.
Well, I read the whole thing. There was only one thing I thought maybe got overlooked when you're talking about increased landscaping. Did we remember to include on Title 13 that, like, if they have a wetland or slope district or riparian, that counts towards their overall requirement?
Yeah, because they would be within the riparian, the VECO zone, and so then those standards apply.
So they'd be able to utilize that and count it towards landscaping buffer. Okay, and then, you know, because I was at the meeting, I found out it was Tanny that asked Division of Land Conservation and Development that question, which I thought was a great idea, because I think Tanny and the Planning Commission really understand that the community's their main concern is the parking. And fortunately, when they have limited parking, it ends up being part of a tenant's rent usually. On the tour we went on, Dave was there, we saw some of these newer, taller developments, and they had a small amount of parking, like in the ground level, underneath the building. So it was like almost underground parking. And they were going for like an additional $200 a month in rent. So it's like another reason, I guess, to have more parking. We lucked out with Eagle Ridge because it was before CFAC, and they even built extra parking than what was required. And it worked out well because I haven't seen or heard any complaints about it spilling out into the surrounding neighborhoods and that sort of thing. So, you know, parking is definitely a key. I don't know if it's worth going up higher, but like you said, the hammer is that you don't have to do any parking at all. And I also get the whole thing about, you know, things not penciling out, but, you know, we kind of heard that at the last council meeting as well. You know, we rated, you know, 3 times, 4 times on some of the fees. I'm getting kind of a mixed message. So I guess I have some more thinking and reading to do on this, but I do understand the predicament, and it mostly has to do with CFAC, and not you guys. And, the only other thing I think of is to, like, you have that gap if the building's over 150 feet long, by not allowing parking in there, because that might make it more affordable for the developer. If it's paved, it can be used for bicycle parking. So to me, that doesn't really help us. Bicycle parking's pretty easy.
And what I'll say to that is we have that standard in there, or if someone were to build, there's no reason to say that they don't separate and create two buildings and have a drive aisle to parking in the rear. That's a very good possibility. It really comes down to the design, and I think that's where it really leans on staff. For if someone were to come in for a large development, we have a pre-app, and that's when we sit down there and say, hey, these are the requirements. This is your design. I'm gonna tell you what's gonna help the community, what will make planning commission a lot happier is if you do this, 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 and this. If you go with this, you can, but really it'll be a lot better if you were to change this and maybe add that. And that's where it kind of leans on staff to really help developers. Our goal as staff is to try to find a way to yes within the realms of our code. That's what our goal is. So if a developer comes in, we can have them go through the whole thing and just have them get denied and waste their money and waste our time. Or we can try to work with them and get them to something. So it really comes down to the design. If they want to do that, cool, you can do that, it's allowed. But what if we do something different? And try to really push them into certain directions that would be best for the city.
So if we do nothing, we could be looking at 3-story, no parking, and not get the benefit of any storefront at all.
Correct.
Yep.
And it would be built closer to the road.
Yep. And in this section right now, our code, we don't have anything specific for mixed use. Like, we have mixed use standards, but that's something that staff will be going back through and we have to actually finish them. They were never fully completed. So in this section, in this code, we add sections for like vertical mixed use and horizontal mixed use. Horizontal mixed use, we don't currently have any standards for. That's where the 60% of the ground floor has to be used for commercial. But that means that you can have 60% and then residential on the side with curb style appeal. That's where trying to have those development standards come into effect is important.
Thank you.
If I could, I just think Councilor White just hit the nail on the head there. I mean, they could literally go out there and build 3-story box apartments right now, and we wouldn't have anything to say about it. Whereas at least this gives us some.
Look, if you're going to speak in favor of, I'm going to say something against it. They're not doing it.
Yes.
They're not doing it because it's worth more than that. They can build something better. What we have built in our downtown area is under the current rules. And just because there's a threat, we'll build something crappy. Therefore, if you won't give us our height, is pretty, unlikely. But, we've got to honor our aesthetics and our town. Building taller buildings all of our downtown is, I think, a mistake. And giving in to that is, let's just say, just because they could build something crappy doesn't mean that we should cave in on this. We really shouldn't. I'm sorry, but
I was just making sure I understood it with that comment.
All right, but as long as there were comments. Honestly, that's not thinking it through. That isn't the way it works. Look, it's a public hearing, so I'll open it up if the council doesn't have any more questions. And so at this time, I suppose we have an opportunity to declare any conflicts of interest. I guess maybe that comes after the public hearing, but at some point, be thinking about that. I'm going to open a public hearing. I'll start with the people on Zoom. Does anyone wish to address the city council on this matter?
Mayor Whitman, Paul Wilcox, Troutdale.
Yes, Paul.
Okay. This is going to be a bit lengthy, but it's taken a long time to get to this point, and I'll be forwarding the printed version of this for your review right after this meeting. So if you lose track as I speak, don't worry about it. I would normally wait until the second reading of an ordinance to comment so that my comments would be fresh in your minds during decision time. But for these development code text amendments, I wanted you to have additional time to review and research based on what I bring to your attention. While I'm a member of the Planning Commission, I speak for myself and actually in opposition to the Planning Commission recommendation. I'm always distrustful of unanimous decisions because there's very little that every single person would agree on. In this case, there are members of the public who have expressed opposition to allowing building higher than the current 35 feet, an opposition that I share. I'd encourage a review of the public comments from Planning Commission's April 8th hearing. The original reason for allowing 4 or even 5 stories was to allow for ground floor commercial, which requires higher ceiling heights. Staff also argued that 35 feet and 3 stories didn't quote unquote pencil out. However, there are examples of 3-story with commercial on Halsey and Fairview. I was prepared to allow for 3 stories up to 40 feet to better accommodate ground floor commercial, but again, staff didn't consider 3 stories viable. Going from 35 to 50 feet is not an insignificant increase. It's nearly 50% higher. An incentive that was strongly encouraged to allow for 4 stories and a 50-foot height limit was for the developer to provide a particular level of parking. This was among several other available incentives listed under 4.740. So it does not need to be utilized necessarily. On the other hand, the heavy emphasis on parking under option number 7, that is, providing parking at 75%, would be the only so-called benefit required. I don't know of any multifamily development in the 3 smaller cities that didn't provide parking at 100% or higher. Home Forward had no required parking, but provided at over 150%. In effect, 75% parking is a free pass to 4-story buildings. I also question whether the mere action of an applicant choosing to avail themselves of the height bonus option in and of itself would require that the application be elevated to a type 3. Another issue with allowing an entire additional floor relative to parking availability is that higher density creates demand for more parking, which is somewhat counterproductive. If you add a 3rd story of residential to ground floor commercial, you've increased residential density by 50%. It should also be kept in mind that this Halsey Gateway Overlay District does not extend west to include the McMenamin's properties, which is where any truly significant transformation of the larger 3 cities Halsey corridor would be occurring. There are also various ways in which the development can be configured. For example, the byway in Wood Village is what would be described as horizontal mixed use, where they have low profile commercial on the street frontage and 3- and 4-story residential set back off the street. There's no reason a Halsey developer couldn't go that route to qualify for the added height and story. The Halsey design standards also call for the 4th story to be stepped back 10 feet to make it appear less imposing, but that's assuming it's on a street frontage. If it's not front and center, that would be unnecessary and a waste of usable floor space. Under 4.715 residential and mixed-use requirements, A1, it states, quote, mixed-use development requirement, residential uses shall be permitted only when part of a mixed-use development, unquote. This strikes me as only overly restrictive when the most likely site of a significant size is immediately adjacent to existing residential. Forcing commercial into a predominantly residential area might not benefit the local residents or visitors. My idea of a multi-use zoning is that various uses are permitted within the entire area, not that each individual property necessarily needs to have more than one use. The space to be encouraging mixed-use residential and commercial is the confluence site. There you are. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Paul. Anyone else online? Public hearing. All right. to people in the chambers. Rich, Alan.
Rich Allen, Troutdale. So I need to point out that I am on the Planning Commission. However, I am here to only speak for myself. So Council, Mayor, what I want to bring up here is that I feel it's very important that this council not just take a recommendation from the Planning Commission, but really scrutinize it as to what we should do. This is one of those complex ones that we need to look at. I liked what Councilor White had said about what happens if we don't do it.
Almost over.
What are we facing?
It's getting late.
I know.
What happens if we do? What's that?
I don't think Paul's muted.
Okay.
No, he is.
So what happens if we don't pass a measure or development like this? And what happens if we do, right? What's that going to look like either way? That really needs to be scrutinized. I like Mayor Rittmer, where is it better just not do development at all under certain rules? That may be considered too. But what's important is that we actually look at this because it's the future of our town. So there used to be a time when the state gave more autonomy to the cities over their own development. And what you've been seeing lately is more centralized control by the state. And what's happened is we typically get choices of what we don't want to do or what we really don't want to do. Now, it looks like we have a vote, but do we really? We get to choose between whatever the lesser of the evils that the state tells us we have to mandate to do, right? And so it's getting harder these days. Now, my wife and I, we're at that age where we're not, working on a career, we're not raising our children, we're actually going out and we're visiting some other towns. There are some nice places in Oregon to go visit. But public transportation is not strong in areas where you want to visit. They're concentrated in areas you don't want to go, right? And so we're not going to walk to another city. We're going to drive. If you can't park, you're not going. It's just simple as that. And so the whole idea that developers are going to do what's necessary to attract people and do good developments, that's just not always the case. Their pressure is not to do that. And we see this improve, because if developers always did the best thing, well, we wouldn't need building codes, we wouldn't need inspections, we wouldn't need planning commissions, we wouldn't need any of that if they always did the best thing. We know they don't. And given their choice, oftentimes they won't. And we visited some places where, gee, it might have been nice to stop, but nowhere to park, so we move on. Or, boy, that's a crappy area, we're not stopping here. So these kind of things are important. It's important for a city to be able to develop an environment where they want to live. I don't know what's so wrong with that and why it has to be so centrally controlled. That's my statement.
Thank you, Rick. Anyone else? It's a public hearing.
Good evening, Mayor Rittman, City Councilors. Tanny Stephenson. I do sit on the Planning Commission, but I'm testifying as a private citizen this evening. Couple of things. First off, this is somewhat of a reaction to CFEC, and CFEC basically is the great sledgehammer from Salem coming down on many communities within the state. And that is something that we're trying to deal with. And just so you have a perspective of what the Planning Commission's doing, CFEC mandates that if you are within a half a mile of a frequent transit route, you're not required to put in any parking, none for residential. Okay, our standard for many years had been 2.33 spaces per apartment unit on average. And why this is kind of a big deal is Troutdale's had its bus service cut back significantly. And even prior to that, the national standard for bus service is every 15 minutes. And the state wrote its own rule, so it became every half an hour. So I mean, like right now, you've got hours on end where there is no bus service in some of these areas.
So frequent is every half hour? That's frequent?
That's considered frequent, and a half-hour walk. So if you're going to the grocery store, Mrs. Smith's pulling the wagon, Mr. Smith's riding in it, and they're going up Buxton. I mean, that's kind of the vision that you're stuck with. And so there's no real easy answer to this. And we felt like the parking was something that could be a benefit. To say that they're not going to put any in is probably not accurate, and to say that they're going to put in plenty is probably also not accurate. Because if that was the case, we wouldn't have all the land use codes that we do, and we wouldn't have mandated parking for the last, 30 or 40 years, right? If it was all going to get done anyhow, we wouldn't have had to do any of this stuff. But I'll just say, this was something that was tough, and to look at, just to give you a little perspective, Fox Ridge has, I believe, just over 300 parking spots to it. Okay? And potentially you could build Fox Ridge today with no parking. None. And that's the world that we're living in right now. So we're trying to make the best of it. Again, parking I thought was something that would help us get to where we want to go. But we did spend a significant amount of time on this, and there are some things that, I'd like to address also within the staff report. I don't know if you want to take these up.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
Public.
I mean, they're not big things, but
Give us a page number where you want.
This would be page 19 of your packet. In February 26th, Planning Commission did not hold its final work session. It held a work session. And the final one was held in March 11th, 2026. And then if we go to page 21 of your packet, the May 13th one, the Planning Commission elected to add the parking because we got permission from DLCD through staff to do that. That was added, and that was added because of testimony we received. And so we added that in, okay, at that meeting, the May 13th meeting. And just so you're aware, there was 6 items. If you look at page 20, the mural, the public seating, the oversized opening, those things, we added the parking, which gave us a 7th. So we might want to just recognize that those changes were made to the text that the Planning Commission received. And then just for clarification, we talk a lot about the HNA and the need for housing and all that, and this is great. But at our HNA, we needed 720 dwelling units between 2020 and 2040. That plan was adopted in 2021. I believe right now we've got in excess of like 430 dwelling units that have gone in since that happened. Okay, so I think Troutdale's well on their way to the 720 at this point. And so I'd also like us to, when staff comes back, maybe amend the finding that is on page 33 to address the parking. It does not do that. I just like everything to be nice and shiny. But just so that we're kind of have some context, this whole thing started in 2017, where frankly, Troutdale, in our opinion, wasn't listened to. It started off with a 3 cities Zoom planning commission meeting, and we said those were our concerns. Next thing we know, there was text amendments that went to the city council. And that's kind of what started the ball going down into the ditch or the bowling alley gutter, or wherever you want to go with it. And then it's worked its way back from there. There are some things in here that are good, I'll say, and but I think in some ways this is us doing the best we can with what we felt we were handed. I don't know that anybody was jumping up and down after we approved this one, but we did feel like it was getting something over the line. And I had my oversight when I rewrote this, when I asked for approval of this on page 86. The significance that parking was, we felt to the community, we would, I think we could table this a little bit differently. So parking's more of an emphasis than being one paragraph on the bottom of that.
And page 86 of the packet?
Yes. Yeah. Number 7 on the bottom. So we just realign that, so maybe number 1 says, you know, do this or these 2 or these 4. Might be a little more easy read, just a suggestion. And the height issue, I think, is an issue, it's probably always going to be an issue. I know that when we looked at doing 55 feet down at the confluence, you would have thought we were building the Sears Tower down there. That was a really big deal, and I think any height increase is going to be something. But, you know, if you look at, I do think that when it comes to a community benefit, having some type of parking, at least some control over some of that, would be a benefit to the community versus having none. And we felt that that was the best we could do with that. But again, you know, these are my suggestions at this point.
Mayor, I have a question of Danny. Is that?
It's all right with me.
I'm just curious on your opinion, you know, if parking's the most expensive thing on that 7-item list, what are the chances of a developer picking that one? I mean, I could see them wanting to do a mural or a park bench or more landscaping over doing parking. So I'm wondering how much reality is there that they might pick the parking thing? Because we couldn't eliminate it. I know you asked Division of State Lands if they could do parking and make that the only thing they could pick, do the parking to get the extra height. And I thought that was a great idea, but I guess it's not legal, is what you found out at the committee.
You know, I felt like we did what we could. You don't know what a developer's going to do, but for anyone to speculate that they're going to do something or not going to do something, I think is a mistake. Because they're people, they're all different, and they have different needs, and to say that, you know, they're going to do this or they're going to do that isn't always the case, or is rarely the case.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tanny. Anyone else? Public hearing. All right, I'll close the public hearing. And, additional questions or comments from council? Well, I'll say I would be interested in receiving, before we are asked to act on this, to see the CFAC rules that we adopted. Apparently, we did adopt something, so, or at least a pointer to where they are. That provision that's referred to, section 9.010, which apparently is the parking rules elsewhere in the city. I'd like to see that in the packet, or at least a direction to where it is. Navigating the Troutdale website to find a particular ordinance isn't that easy. So just exactly where it is, if you can possibly do that. I have managed it, but usually I need help. I'd also be interested in the minutes or whatever council meeting we adopted the Halsey Street plan. She mentioned was in 2024, that was the origin of this overlay district that's being proposed now. Is that clear enough? Are those, you can provide the Gateway Overlay District map, yeah, or district. Because I want to see what we adopted. I just don't, sure I was here, so I just don't remember it. Exactly, I remember the streetscape stuff. Sidewalks, parking strips, trees, that sort of thing, but not raising the height of buildings. So anyway, any other questions? Otherwise, we'll move on to the next agenda item. All right.
I think it's unfortunate that our state rep, Zach Hudson, left the meeting. I think he could have benefited from some of the comments I heard tonight.
I agree. Anyway,
but can we get those before we get the packets?
they should be in the packet if you can provide them in the packet.
I can take those code sections. Basically, the two code sections, like we're at chapter 9, like I said, it's already in our current development code. So they're not being amended, so that's why they're not part of the packet. It's not part of the chapter that's being amended. It's just, hey, it goes here. So I can send those out. I can add them to the packet if you'd like. The CFAC guidelines are also in chapter 9. That's our parking section. So it's basically chapter 9 of our development code is what you're looking for. And I'll find the resolution and I can add that part of the packet.
I appreciate it. Thank you. That'd be great.
But is there any way to get it earlier than from the packet? Because I don't know when our next
I believe I can.
council meeting is. And this is a lot of information, like over the Memorial holiday, to try to read and understand. To be honest, it was very difficult, so.
That's totally fair. It is a lot. Development code is extremely dense. That's why, as Tanya mentioned, we had 4 work sessions, 3 with MIG, and then an additional 1 with staff to go over this. And then we also discussed it multiple times, just as updates of where we're currently at, because it's dense. There's a lot to go through. So yeah, development code's it's dense.
And I'm curious to know with the CFAC rules frequent, what does frequent mean when we are losing our transportation on Halsey? Because they don't come every half hour that I know of, unless I'm mistaken. But I know that they've taken away a lot of the routes. And so what does frequent mean, and does it really apply here?
I can get you that. I mean, I can answer it, but it might be easier if I just send it over to you.
Is it essential that we adopt this at the next council meeting or consider adoption? Could we put it off another meeting?
Yeah.
Would that be of interest to the council?
We totally can. It doesn't have to. We currently have extension on our grant because I think the planning commission want to look at this more. So, if that's something that council would like to do.
Would that work if, I don't know what the agenda is like for the second?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
I know we adopt our budget, but we could put it off till the first meeting in July even.
Yeah, I just need to check the grant and make sure we're not up against it, but I don't see why.
I'm saying no.
Our grant managers agree about extending. I mean, the last one was extended for 5 years. If we get it done within a little over a year, I think they'll be pretty happy about it.
All right, then I suggest we put it off to, that we continue this consideration of this ordinance until the first meeting in July. If there's no objection from the council. Is that enough? Do I need to vote on it?
Did we want to have another meeting on this topic in June to discuss and then another in July, or
I'm proposing that we do get the information that specifically we requested earlier, if you could, not wait till the July packet, but send it as soon as it's convenient for you to send it in a few weeks. That would give us more time.
We'll get it by the end of the week.
I suspect we'll call you if we don't get it, sometime in the middle of June maybe. But really appreciate that.
So then we conduct the second reading on June or July 14th. Is that what it is?
Yes, that's right. Yes. Correct, 14th.
Okay. So just so we have a time date certain, so it'd be July 14th at 7.
That's our regular council. That would be a regular council agenda item then. All right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And the public hearings continue. Well, the public hearing is closed, but we're continuing the item into July 14th at 7 o'clock.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Our needs.
Very welcome.
If I got a little.
Yeah, of course. I'll get that information put together and I'll send it out to everybody.
Really appreciate everything you do, really. So,
thank you all very much.
All right. Thanks a lot. And finally, on to the next agenda item, an update from Public Safety Services Delivery Working Group. Well, if anyone else needs a break, I do. Could we take 5, Mike? Do you mind?
Yeah.
Sorry.
We're this close.
We're almost there.
Bad idea. I had two bottles of water.
Yeah. We'll move on to agenda item 6.1, an update from the Public Safety Services Delivery Working Group. Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. My hope is to make this relatively brief without diving deep into all the issues that we covered. At the Public Safety Working Group's meeting last week, we discussed the limited police proposal as well as the challenges associated with that, along with our contract with Multnomah County. Prior to that, the mayor and I had met with the sheriff and Chief Deputy Hemsworth, and we had discussed our current contract, and we asked them to consider maybe sharpening their pencil and coming back to us with an offer that better suited our budget. And if you turn to page 148 of your packet, that's where this starts. This is our current, this is Exhibit B or Appendix B out of our current IGA. And the cost for this coming year is listed underneath in pen, and it's the 5.7 million. That's what we're budgeting this year. We asked the sheriff and the chief deputy to see what they could do, see if they could come up with a comparable proposal to what we were proposing to do with our limited police. And so they came back with what the mayor and I consider is a very reasonable offer. They knocked almost $1 million off their proposal, to be frank. And it's still a working proposal here. My concern was losing the community resource officer, but Chief Deputy Hemsworth and the sheriff have indicated that they will have like a command liaison available, and that command liaison will work very much as our community resource officer would. You would still have your 24/7 coverage. I think there's the reduction of a couple deputies on this, as well as the community. So it's a reduction of 3 deputies essentially, and then 1 records technician. So a total of 4 reductions on what's being proposed. But in doing that, it brings it into where our budget could handle this. And it would be with a 6% escalation that I wrote there, and I kind of did the back of the napkin math to see what a 6% escalation would look like over the span of the next 5 years. I also did some math on where our proposal was estimating at, and maybe our proposal is a little optimistic. But, over the span of 5 years, this is a little more expensive, but not that much more expensive. And anyways, I think it's a reasonable proposal that the council will really need to take a hard look at. And, the mayor and I were talking as well, and we felt that this would be something that would probably be better suited if we had a chance for full public input, and maybe following like a work session or something like that. So my suggestion to the mayor today when we discussed it was maybe we add a work session in June sometime, and tie it in with our URA meeting. My question to the council is, if we did that, would you like to do an earlier meeting? Because there could be a lot of public input associated with it. So you want to shoot for like a 5 or a 6 p.m. meeting time instead of like a 7 p.m. regular meeting time? That's just my question to the council.
Okay, if we change the time, people would miss the meeting because they're used to us meeting.
Well, this would be a work session. It wouldn't.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I was saying a 5 or a 6, depending on what you wanted to do.
All right, in June, we're gonna have a URA meeting to adopt the budget. So that won't be very long. So we could have a 6 o'clock work session, open to the public, take public comment, full public input, unlike our normal work sessions. And this is what I'm thinking you mean, and it's what I mean. And then we might have to adjourn at 7 for the URA meeting to adopt the budget. That would take 10 minutes, and then we could resume the public meeting. How does that sound? Does that sound good?
So if we're taking public comment, then do we call it a work session or do we just call it a regular session?
Well, they're public meetings either way. Can we I don't think we have a rule against, that we just don't normally do it. But the whole purpose of this meeting would be to consider the sheriff's proposal versus our police department. I I was thinking I would want to welcome public comment, but I wouldn't expect, we wouldn't make a decision at the work session, so it's not like when everybody shows up, but I would welcome public comment. I assume the council would too, so, but mostly it would be to discuss the pros and cons. Does that sound good?
So we want to shoot for June 16th then for that? Does that sound like a good day? Because that's what the day that we're planning for the URA.
16th?
So
Wait, I thought you said the council was, oh, that was July 4th. Sorry, I'm mixing them up.
Yeah.
June 16th. Yeah, does that sound good to everybody? I mean, we would have a meeting anyway, so. All right. Yes, June 16th, starting at 6, a work session to discuss police services in Troutdale. And you need to announce that we're going to have a URA meeting at 7. It'll be a brief meeting to adopt the budget. Deal with any other matters, probably wouldn't be any. And then we would return to the work session.
And since the sheriff and chief deputy stuck around for so long, do you have any questions of them on this particular proposal that they might be able to answer while we have them here?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has them.
You worked out the numbers with the 6% escalator. I don't know if you have those numbers, but
Back literally.
I trust Mike Weston's math.
I don't know about that.
I'm 50-50 on it, but no, I don't have the exact figures with the 6%, just the figures with the 6%, which we of course could get you that.
It would be important to understand the 6% escalator was also, the sheriff came back and the chief deputy came back to us with a very welcome, reasonable proposal that is very helpful this year. And they mentioned instead of an 8% escalator, this is the way I understood from our meeting, it would be a 6%, meaning it would go up 6% for this level of service. Obviously, if we wanted something more, we'd have to renegotiate, but for this level of service, it would be a 6% escalator, meaning the expected rise each year would be 6%. And I just want to confirm that's what you meant.
So that is what we're trying to do. I just want to reiterate, though, also, as you're looking at the proposals, when we had an opportunity to review the proposal of starting up a new police department, myself, being in this profession for 30 years, recognized significant gaps. And that's why I made the statement earlier around everybody's facing difficult financial realities, and they've even changed, even in the last year and a half when we were working through this with a previous city manager. And really, my responsibility was not to sit back, but to really bring people back to the table and start discussing what this would mean for this community. And it was going to be extremely challenging not to have 24/7 coverage, and recognizing that if the resources aren't here in this building because we don't have a contract, there are not resources assigned to Troutdale from the sheriff's office because I don't have the money in the general fund to staff additional patrol deputies, the 2 additional detectives that are in the contract. So looking at the overall service model to ensure 24/7 coverage, recognizing that we all really appreciate the community resource deputy and the work that deputy board does every single day, but also recognizing that we're in significant budget challenges across, we have to make tough decisions. And so that's what we wanted to come to the table with, something that could still have access to the specialized resources, the over 150 personnel and resources available with critical incidents, which unfortunately we've seen quite a few in the last week. So we wanted to put a proposal together that maintained 24/7 coverage and that had access to making sure that this community had the response that they expect and deserve.
With respect to the contract, when, as the city manager often says, we sharpen our pencil, we really genuinely did sharpen the pencil and look to see anywhere that we could and how we could possibly make it work. The elimination of the community resource deputy, as we've talked about, it's a great position and I think thoroughly benefits the city, but it is like an over and above a patrol function, which is why that was one of the reductions. With the escalator, I knew that the 8% was a particular sticking point because it became more and more and more expensive as it goes out. And then from our finance manager and chief of business services, like we have like 11 years of data now with the city and have risen it somewhere in the 7%, but they're optimistic that we could vacate the 8% and make it 6% in addition to the reduction of the 4 FTEs, which is how we came to the number, but still provide 24/7 coverage. And then also our make sure that we have a command liaison, a lieutenant or captain. I mean, I'm always available, but actually somebody dedicated as a liaison to attend meetings with the city manager as needed and report out to council as needed, and then just be the actual liaison to track community events and all the stuff so that we can, our communication is still dialed in the absence of a community resource deputy.
Well, thank you, and thank you very much for your hard work on the proposal and the proposal. It was, it caught our eye, let's put it that way. So we've got some thinking and consideration to do. Yes, Glenn, go ahead.
I just think from my perspective that it doesn't work without Nick Moore in that mix. He's our main guy. And we asked for that and we saw immediate improvement, and I'd hate to lose that. I hated losing the coverage in Glen Auto Park. That was another important one. And that's where everyone goes when it's hot, and people that are down there without any eyes on them other than the lifeguards now. But I don't see doing it without Nick.
I think it's, again, really challenging with tight budgets because the proposal that was on the table to start a new police department eliminated a significant amount of services. So we're trying to maintain a 24/7 response and the liaison to ensure that we can be responsive. And I think there's opportunities to be more intentional with the deputies that are assigned to those districts and be able to have a better, potentially better lines of open communication. And we understand, we added that position into the contract as further into it, about 5 years in, I believe. And we get that. We're coming to the table because I recognize the significant gaps after having this professional experience over 30 years. And I understand that that's also a challenge for the city, but we're also trying to work in budget constraints.
So I guess for me is, I was on the Public Safety Committee for several years, and we had done a poll in the city of Troutdale, and their concern was they didn't see the police officers, or if they called, they never came. And so for me, my concern, and this is why I was kind of leaning towards having our own staff, was that when we called, they came, and my concern is the appearance right now is I call and you don't come, or I call and you say, I will send you a form. And follow-up isn't that great to some people. Now, this could only be a handful because, I only talk to a handful. My concern is that that's what is some of the perspective out there. I know that KATU did a survey on the city of Troutdale residents, and it showed that a lot of the residents, when I looked at it, was like 30-40% was wanting our police back. No, I have enjoyed every officer that I have ever worked with and talked with. Yeah, that's not part of my discussion. It's all, my concern is safety. And how can you improve, or how can I help you improve that safety perspective in the community? Because it's not there 100%. It may never be there 100%, but at least trying to get it closer. I mean, we have people that call and say, an officer is sitting right here and somebody just sped right by, went right through the light, didn't even pull them over. And I'm not the officer, I have no idea what's going on. But when I hear things like that, I get concerned. And when we had Troutdale, I could call them and they were there. I don't necessarily feel that with you now, but I'm just trying to, how do I improve that?
I think there's an opportunity for communication. Sometimes there may not be a good line back to share information, and so that's also why we're trying to create that liaison. I do want to reiterate that the amount of resources that are here, I want to absolutely be responsive, and we'll be having conversations with our patrol team. But I also think it's so important for me to continue to articulate that when there are 8 officers with no relief factor for vacation, sick, court, paid leave Oregon, same with sergeants, that we want to come to the table with a reasonable proposal for 24/7 coverage. And we also want to make sure that all the lines of communication are open so we can address community concerns. But I really think it's important for the community to understand and recognize that the limited resource, and maybe there's conversation about trying to build, but the limited resource would look very different than the over 50 uniformed personnel assigned to this building.
And then if I can add to that, just to address a couple things. One, Deputy Boer loves to be the community resource deputy in Troutdale. He's not at all a fan of that position going away. It literally would be dollars and cents for the reason why it went away. The same as we've said goodbye to many valuable resources at the sheriff's office over the years due to budget cuts. We had to put up the backstop of mandated service and some of our other specialties that were amazing and had amazing results just simply went by the way of we had to maintain a certain level of deputy coverage for patrol. Second part is community concerns. It very difficult sometimes, like in one jurisdiction, not too far down the road, they really wanted to increase traffic enforcement in a very specific downtown section of their city. So we heard that response and we did that, and then the city was inundated with complaints of being cited by their hometown sheriff's office for simply rolling through the stop sign past the library that they always were. So I say that kind of humorously to say that it's very difficult to please everyone, but hear me when I say I want to please everyone. My goal is law enforcement is 100% satisfaction. If we fall short of that and hit 98 or 99, we'll be okay with it. But that being said, there is always the inherent thing of I wish that somebody came here and came here. We take that as a training opportunity. I'll take each one of those complaints one by one and we'll address it. A deputy was sitting at a stop sign and someone drove by. I've seen that complaint. I've investigated that complaint. There is a time that I'm sure the deputy would say, you know what, I didn't see that and I'm sorry. And there's also a time that they say, hey, you know what, I was on the phone with 911 because I was about to go code 3. So, I mean, but we look into all those. We value the communication, and our goal is to serve with 100%, participation. So that's the truth.
I appreciate that. I mean, I have no complaint, except for what I hear, but I think you're listening, and so this was the first time that I heard this, and I'm part of that, the Peaceway community group, and so this is just now given to us, and so it would be great for us to really discuss it in depth.
Absolutely.
And I do think that communication's key, making sure that we have open lines of communication and that we're hearing where some challenges are, so we can adequately address them.
Oh, good. I'll invite public comment briefly here. Mike, unless you had something else you.
I was just going to, because I don't think all of the counselors were there for the public working group, actually.
No, that's right. There's only 3 of us.
So I was just going to give a brief update on the fire proposal that we had from District 10 as well. So District 10 had come up with a proposal in there. I don't think I included it in your packet, and I apologize for that. But in their proposal, they came up with an option that was about $10 to $11 million cheaper than the Gresham enhanced option, and still had the 8 1/3 stations. And so they were trying to stay within their permanent property tax rate of $2.85 per thousand. And I think they did a pretty good job of that. There were some questions that I had pertaining to their administrative costs and things of that nature that I think might actually create some more bumps in their estimate. But overall, I was pretty satisfied with the information we had from District 10. I thought it was a reasonable proposal given the information that has been presented by Gresham previously regarding all those different things. And I'll be happy to share that information with the council. I apologize, I did not throw that packet in with this one. But I do want to just mention that we did receive that proposal. We're still waiting for the proposal from Clackamas District 1. There was some commentary at the task force meeting that Gresham had a work session in which they discussed the viability of Clackamas District 1, and there was some commentary back and forth on whether that would be a viable prospect or not. I've still yet to see enough evidence to dissuade me from thinking Clackamas 1 was a viable option. I'd still like to see that. So hopefully the task force gets to see that in June or July.
Are we meeting this Thursday?
I haven't heard from Eric, but
it's next week.
I think it is next
I think
Thursday.
we were supposed to hear from Clackamas 1, and I just wondered if we.
So it would be the first Thursday in June, and I haven't heard from Eric Schmidt. He did send an email out yesterday, even though it was the holiday, and was mentioning a get-together with city managers to talk about task force stuff. So I imagine that's probably in the next day or two, and then we'll get an update on what he intends to present next Thursday.
Anyway, just to our guests, fortunately for Troutdale, police services aren't the only thing we're up against the wall on. Fire is another one. So, but these are very important, and we appreciate everything you've done and your most recent efforts and proposals.
So, I mean, what I'd like to do is just kind of take a apples to apples comparison from what we proposed in our budget versus what Chief Deputy Hemsworth and the sheriff have put together, and then just present that to you at the June 16th work session to kind of just go through it and, kind of work through concerns, thoughts, and get just general direction, because at the end of the day, that's what I need, just a general direction, one way, shape, or form. I'm sure the sheriff's office feels the same way.
Well, we'll be sharing, what we come up with public, but we'll be sharing it with you, I'm sure. So with that, I think we are on to
public comment.
Public comment. Didn't I do that?
No.
All right. Public comment is invited at this time on the on Mike's report from the Public Safety Delivery Working Group. Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, appreciate it.
You might just hold on for 5 more seconds, and let's see if there's any comment or questions. Does anyone online have a question or a comment? Does anyone in the room have a comment or a question? Okay.
Hello, Diane Castillo-White, Troutdale, Oregon. I'm on the Citizens Advisory Committee, but I'm not going to speak for them. We were going to have an open house coming up, and we wanted to explore the options for police for the future. I'm thinking 1 hour of looking at numbers on the date proposed may not be enough time. For consideration for public comment and for discovery. I attended the last Troutdale Public Safety Services Delivery Working Group. I will say I'm married to Glenn White, and I wanted him to see it because a lot of the sheriffs had made some really good points, but the audio didn't get captured till 3 awesome speakers already spoke. So what I'm saying is I was going to tell him I thought all the counselors needed to see that, and both sides, to see why this, why that. Numbers are a component. They're not the only component. Nick Bohr, after we lost our police, I support all people who service Troutdale, I have to say that. They would do personalized things like come to your house and say, hey, your son this, have a conversation. They knew us, they knew the people, they knew what happens in Troutdale, and they were on it. And I'm gonna say I do know Nick Bohr. And but he's excited about Troutdale. He loves Troutdale, and he was a great point person to understand what was going on with the poor woman who didn't wear all her clothes and had a sword down at the Black Rock coffee shop on Frontage Road. Or he knew all the different things and the components that were going on. He cared about the people. He could figure out like, hey, that guy's going to be trouble when he gets out of jail again, et cetera, et cetera. He knows Troutdale, and that was, at least I felt we had some person appointed to Troutdale that provided community, some aspect of community, knowing what was going on in Troutdale. But I'm just saying there's many different things on both sides, and I'm just personally saying I don't think 1 hour covers it with getting the counselors on board with what's going on, the pros, the cons. The sheriffs did a great job of saying before too that past meeting what they provided, and a lot of people haven't heard all those things. So I'm just saying I'm not sure it's a 1 hour conversation. Thank you very much.
Just so you know, I mean, the meeting will be an hour, then we'll do a URA meeting, then we'll go back to the discussion, so it won't be an hour.
You mean like the people who wanted to comment, then they'll stick around for the URA and then...
Anybody who wants to comment will have a chance to comment. And we aren't rendering a final decision, that's just information gathering. This isn't an easy...
Yeah, but I'm just thinking it should be very informative so that that all due diligence and all discovery is out there, because we're getting little pieces here and there. I'm trying to go to these meetings to see what's going on. I'm trying to review past meetings, public safety, equity, whatever, and this last one that occurred, so I can be informed. And I'm just saying once the people know it was all out there and they had time to digest, that's a good thing, because then they could say no decision was made right. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, well, thank you. Oh, Penny. Oh, all right, you're on.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Channing Stephenson, Troutdale resident. I'll be brief. I did find this very interesting, and I think the public comments can be very important. I notice that we're having this meeting the day after the Public Safety Working Group is meeting, so I'm wondering if they're going to discuss this proposal or look at it to any extent before the council does.
I mean, on the 16th of June?
On the 15th? They meet on the 15th?
Well, I don't know. We probably won't, actually, don't you think? But I don't know. It wouldn't matter. It would just be additional information to bring forward on the 16th.
Right. And This is a very big decision either way. There's no win here. But I just want to say that from someone that was around when this happened back in 2015, a lot was said that it was done by 4 people. And the public didn't know about it and wasn't really involved in it. And I would just caution to all of us that we not make the mistakes of the past again.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? I don't see one. All right. Just to be sure. All right. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you. We're here to answer any questions next time if you.
All right, thank you so much for hanging around. Sorry, our other, you know how these things go.
That's the late one.
Anyway, let's move on to staff communications. If I can talk.
Right on time, perfect. So we've been collecting bids. RFPs were out for a series of projects from our ADA ramps, Beaver Creek, our pavement maintenance program in Dunbar. For the most part, at least 3 of those came in really favorable and 1 came in not so favorable. So we're doing okay, but they haven't been finalized yet. So we are working on those elements, but they are looking pretty good. Beyond that, in the next couple of months, I think we'll be bringing budget and everything back to the council for final consideration. So rolling on those things. And then our just primary discussions on police and fire I just went over. So those are my updates. We had the Arts Festival, which was a little rainy on Saturday and cold, but Sunday turned out to be a nice day. We had some challenges with the new outfit kind of running it. But you know, we have a great staff. I think Kimberly and Marley put in some extra hours just trying to help smooth out some of those discrepancies and the issues that kind of rose up. Over the weekend, we started our parking program down at Ben Auto Park. I had a series of appeals that started rolling in on Saturday. So we were able to get through most of those today. I think there's just 1 or 2 left that are going to be probably a little more challenging might require more of a municipal judge review rather than an admin review. So we'll see how those go. But other than that, I think it was a successful kickoff weekend for us, and the weather cooperated Saturday and Sunday, and not so much Monday, but it was a good weekend all around. So well off. I think we had over $1,000 in parking revenue, and then I think there was about 67 citations, is what I recall.
Are those the ones, the appeals that you're talking about? Parking?
No, appeals, we only had about a dozen appeals, maybe less than that, so not that bad.
Okay, thank you. Next is council communications, and I will pass. Glenn?
I had, Saul mentioned the lights are out behind his restaurant. They're also out on the Troutdale Bridge. There's no lights on that. It happens every now and then.
Okay.
Usually just resetting it. And with gravel parking, I had, I live right across from it. So a gentleman was having his daughter's graduation party, and they were expecting a lot of people. And their reserve parking that first of all, they said they weren't told about the parking situation costing. And I thought we were gonna start notifying anybody, and they just rented it a little recently, because I asked them. So they come knocking on my door because there's no parking, and they said the spaces that were supposed to be reserved for them weren't. It was completely full. So I didn't turn them away, but it's like, I don't want this to just be the pattern for the whole summer. So if there's anything you guys can do to
I will check with Leah in Public Works and see kind of what happened. One of the appeals that I talked with a gentleman today was something similar to that, where I think they had reserved one of the buildings for an event, but they didn't reserve any parking. So they reserved the building, but they didn't reserve any parking. And they have to indicate whether they want to reserve parking or not. So that was, I think, one of the issues that I'm gonna send to the.
You're gonna have to pay more.
So I'm gonna send it to the municipal judge.
Take it with a grain of salt then.
Yeah.
That's what I got from the gentleman, but anyway.
And there might be some miscommunications going on between Public Works and the caretakers and things of that nature, so I still have to iron that out.
Okay.
So I'm working on it.
And then I had a concern after our last council meeting when we reviewed the fee schedule and all those big increases. There was problems with understanding the packet, how it was written. But we were painted into a corner. We were told that it had to be approved that night or they're gonna have to start all over. And I don't think that's ever happened. And I'm glad it didn't happen on this one because we were able to have some flexibility. So I think it's always important, even if it's just one counselor, that we have that flexibility in our schedule, not be painted in a corner, for lack of a better word. So I think that's something we really got to be careful with. And I didn't think about this until break, but it might be too late. But one of our options, Dakota said, is we could send the Halsey corridor back to Planning Commission rather than us having those heavy schedule we kind of created. And I almost think that's a better solution because they've dealt with this way more than we have. And I think I wish I would have thought of it, Dave, but I don't know if we can take that in.
We could do that on July 14th.
Okay.
When we pick it up again, we could, one of our options is to send it back to planning, I believe.
I would just say that you are the final decision maker, so even if you send it back to Planning Commission, it still has to come back to you.
I know. I just thought after they heard our concerns that maybe there was another option. Because they've dealt with it so much compared to us. So anyway, it was just an idea. And that's all I have.
Jesse, are you around?
No, it's gone.
Okay, John.
Pass.
Okay. Carol, your turn.
Okay, so I want to piggyback on Glenn. That whole list of increased prices really just like, wow, at the last minute and then being up against a wall. It would be nice to have more time when we have to make decisions like that. So, because the questions I had were like, it went from like 1,000 to 5 and it was just go fast. And it'd be nice to have more explanations next time. And I enjoyed having the police here. It was great. I'm wondering when we meet, if people are going to have questions, are we having them come back, or are we going to have, like, ask them to have, like, send a representation? That might be, I don't know if that's something we should do or not. The other thing is, this is such an important decision for our city, and we're missing 3 counselors. And I normally never say that, but if we're gonna be transparent to our community about the police and the fire, we need them all here. And I know that life happens, and I know work happens, and I know family happens, and I support them in any way, but this is such an important decision, and I wish that they would have been here tonight to hear the police, and they're not. And that's all I have to say.
All right, well, I would entertain a motion.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned.
Bye, John. John's like everybody.